Welcome back, dude and dudettes, to another wild episode of Send It Mate. We're here to talk about all things hunting and outdoors. And today, we've got something that'll keep your gear running smoother than a dingo's getaway.
That's right. Our show is brought to you by High Caliber, the gun and knife oil company that knows how to keep your firearms and blades in tip-top shape.
High Caliber is like the secret sauce for hunters, anglers, and outdoorsy folk everywhere. It's like the magic potion that makes your gun and knives happier than a dog with two tails.
You know, guys, I've been using High Caliber oil for a while now, and let me tell you, it's the duck's nuts. My rifle practically sings a lullaby when I take it out hunting.
And speaking of lullabies, ever tried sneaking up on a deer with a squeaky gun? It's a prime way to end up with no venison in the freezer. You'll be hungrier than a vegan at a bacon festival.
Absolutely. But with High Caliber oil, your gun will be quieter than a ninja in moonlight. You'll be stalking your prey with the grace and stealth of a mountain lion.
High Caliber doesn't just keep things quiet, it also prevents rust and corrosion, so you won't find your gear looking like it spent a season at the bottom of a creek.
That's right, and for you knife enthusiasts out there, High Caliber has got you covered too. Your trusty blade will slice through anything smoother than butter on a hot biscuit.
So, folks, don't let your gear become a rusty, squeaky mess. Head on over to highcaliber.com.au and grab a bottle of their oil today.
And if you use the code SENDITMATE at checkout, you'll get a special discount. I say again, use the code SENDITMATE for all your oil slick, stealthy hunting needs.
Thanks to High Caliber, you'll be sending it in style and silence.
So, gear up, oil up, and send it, mate. High Caliber, the ultimate oil for the ultimate hunter.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Send It Mate Podcast. I'm Caleb.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Couchy.
Oh, it's good to be back.
It is
good to be back.
indeed. We've got another guest for you tonight, but I do believe, Josh, you're going to kick us away with a joke because you didn't have one last week.
I will, and it's fitting for this podcast today.
Really?
And it's a biology fact for the day. And it amazes me that not many people know the difference between
Is it a joke or a fact?
a bone and a marrow.
He's just plowed on.
Yeah, because you've interrupted the flow now, so it's not going to stick. I'll start it again. It amazes me that not many people know the difference between a bone and marrow. Let me explain it. I've never married your mum.
I heard that joke this week, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I thought it was fitting because we've got a biologist on today.
Well done, Josh. I'll pay that one. And we do. We have a biologist or someone at least with a Bachelor of Science in biology. So I'm not too sure how far into that career he is, to be honest, but we have to introduce him. He's worked in a gun shop. He is a big part of Firearm Owners United, who are big supporters of us, and we have a great partnership with them. And among a few other things, he's also got a clothing brand called Eureka Tactical. And speaking of cool, it's Daniel Kuhl. G'day, Daniel. How you going?
I'm great. I'm super excited for this. This is going to be a great time. You guys all look happy, so I assume you are.
Are you staying cool up in Queensland? Sorry. To be done.
Every day, except that that's 38 degrees, so not really.
Yeah, fuck that.
You guys are so weird up there with your lack of daylight savings. Like, what times it get dark for you?
Well, so it's 6 o'clock now. I'd say it get dark in about an hour, maybe hour and a half. So, 7.
That's winter vibes. For
Yeah,
us.
it is.
Like, we still have light at 9 o'clock.
See, no, that's just not good. It's not good for you, It's too bright. It needs to go dark and then, you just go to bed.
I feel it like you won't go to bed or I won't go to bed until it gets dark. Like there's no way that in South Australia during the summer you could go to bed before 9 and have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, but that's fine. Like, there's nothing worse than getting home from work and not being able to do anything in daylight.
Yeah, true.
So,
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, but I mean, how's it go with like your kids and stuff? Like, it's still bright at 9.
you just don't have them.
Like,
That's why roller shutters and blinds are really good because their line is, oh, Dad, it's still light outside. We'll have to go to sleep because it's school tomorrow and you're 7. But to be fair, they do end up talking to each other while it's still light in their room before they go to sleep. So,
So
whatever.
why don't you just keep them up the extra half hour?
It's a discipline of it all. It's not just fucking letting them stay up, then they'll talk another half hour. And then they're just blowing it out.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of human biology, I was listening to a podcast recently and something that actually was pretty interesting to me. He had Andrew Huberman on, and he was
Fantastic.
he was speaking about something he highly recommends for people is to get 10 minutes of sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning. And what that does is reset all your body clocks and get them in alignment. But then what it also does, and correct me if I'm wrong, 16 hours after that, it then sets a sort of like a timer for your body 16 hours later to start releasing melatonin or whatever you need to go to sleep. So it's like resets all your clocks and then triggers sleep in like a routine. And he reckons that is just the best thing you can do.
Yeah. So that's what happens. And it works best with morning sun because, as the sun's rising and light's coming through the Earth's atmosphere, it's, scattering at different wavelengths. So that's why the, sky is different color, depending where the sun is. And when that hits your eye, it sets off the wheels are in motion to release the right chemicals to wake you up, to start washing out a chemical called adenosine, which is like what sort of makes you tired. And then it sets the clock for, to start building up adenosine again and, start making you tired. And then you need that afternoon sun as well, if you can get it, to then do the opposite for it to be like, okay, yep, that sun's setting, certain color wavelengths in our eyes. That means we need to start the process to, initiate sleep.
Mm.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It is.
I do often wonder if that's why we sleep so much better out bush. Well, I do anyway.
Yeah, I do. Well, after the first night anyway.
Much less artificial light, and you feel like you're in tune with sort of the sunrise and sunset.
But it typically is a longer day as well. I mean, you're up before sunrise.
Yeah.
So you're also, more hours awake typically.
I think this is more it's harder to do things at night when you're at camping. At home, you just switch on a light.
More hours putting up with you. That tire anyone out.
Emotionally exhausting.
True. Well, Daniel, I don't know. So how far are you into things with biology?
Well, it's kind of hard to say because I haven't used my degree except for doing stuff myself, really. The purpose of the degree was to do stuff in the hunting industry.
Yep.
And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which we can get to a bit later on, I guess, in terms of like life story and all that. I've worked on certain projects to do with like conservation. I'm working like with owls and bioacoustics, so listening to recordings of owls over the course of like 6 months to see what they're doing and see what's up, and things like that. So that's been pretty cool. But they've been like individual projects rather than sort of long-term employment.
Yeah,
Why owls?
That's what the project was available at the time.
Oh, right. So it wasn't, you didn't pick it. You just fell into the project.
It was an option out of multiple things to choose from. And I don't know, owls are cool. When's the last time you actively like saw an owl, right? Like they're up at nighttime. They're not really around during the day. And so they're pretty rare. I'd say most people don't go actively looking for them. Mm. And so they're just like a super cool bird. You don't see them too often. Only pigeons.
What I like about owls is the fact of, now I'm not sure if it's hawks or eagles, probably both, that owls and hawks, I'm going to say, are just lifelong enemies. And they'll try and kill each other on sight. So that's what?
Ask the biologist.
No, it's fair enough.
Well, they're both raptors, right? And they're both, birds of prey. So they have the same food sources. So yeah, they're going to be pretty unhappy to be in each other's territory because that means that there's less food available for them, or rather more competition.
Yeah.
So what have you learned studying the owl's behaviour?
A lot. I know it's hard to say because it's very specific stuff. So The first project was on about the calling frequency, so both the frequency in terms of hertz and the calling rate, compared to anthropogenic noise sources. So like a road, most animals need to make some sort of signal so they can reproduce, right? You've got to be able to find a mate somehow. So if an owl is nested near a road, and there's cars going by all the time, then maybe it's not going to be heard. So, an owl next to a road versus maybe a few kilometers into the bush might have different calling rates, and that's explored that a fair bit to see, what's going on, because that might lead to declines in population, because it might lead to declines in reproduction rate. And then there was a project on the trilling, so the baby owlets trilling, which I can't reproduce, but so this powerful owl, it trills to see if there are geographic variations, so like accents. Turns out there's not. That was a bit of a waste of like 20 weeks.
20 weeks.
Jesus.
Holy crap.
How cool would that have been though if they did have accents or different just variations?
Well, this was in the greater Brisbane area, so it's going to lead to a study done by other people to see if there's variations in frequency, hertz, between like Brisbane and Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne.
Your boys come up to say g'day.
Yeah, when every time I talk, my dog thinks I'm talking to him, so he kind of just hangs around and he's like, "Who are you talking to?" Like, "I'm here." So if anyone can hear like heavy breathing, it's not me; it's the dog.
It's good cover.
Fair enough.
So there's no identity where difference between like two owls, like you're talking about the juvenile owls, that they all just sound the same. You can't distinguish one from the other from the noise alone.
Within the same species, or within at least powerful owls within the greater Brisbane area, yes.
Yeah, right.
Other species, other areas, maybe, but these ones, no.
Bloody
It's
hell.
interesting.
There you go.
How do you find your baby? Crap, I left it in the car.
Well, they have very large territories, so they're not overlapping too much.
I don't think owls are leaving their babies in the car and cracking a window, Josh. So.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
Well, kind of. Yeah, they do.
Really?
Oh, enlighten us.
It's a nest.
Enlighten us.
Yeah, so owls live in, when they reproduce, they lay their eggs in hollows, tree hollows, right? So that's why it's really important to protect old trees. And powerful owls, at least, are very sensitive to disturbance. So if there's lots of people crowding around it, photographers and stuff, because, same as in the hunting industry, like, if a spot gets found, right, people want to go there. Same thing happens in the owl community. You put a spot up, lots of people want to go there. They might not have great ethics. They crowd an owl. It's sensitive, and they just dip. They'll just leave their eggs. Even if the birds are within, a few weeks old, like fledglings, they're like, "No, I'm out. Bye."
Oh, wow.
And just leave. So yeah, they do.
So we could learn something from this behaviour. That's what I'm taking away from this.
The owl doesn't come back.
No, it doesn't come back.
No. I think a lot of people have a problem if you just ditch on your kids.
It's frowned upon in society, that's for sure.
Kind of is.
Is it though?
You wait till you have kids.
Oh, crikey.
All right, I got a hard question to ask. Now we're on a bit of a conservation thing. So the Australian government want to eradicate the deer here. Right, they want to get rid of it all.
Fuck, straight into it.
So I have a question. Why hasn't anybody spoken about how well they've assimilated into our native environment here in Australia, and why can't we change it to a game species so it can be managed instead of eradicated? Because clearly they're all getting along. I mean, the deer and our wildlife are not harmful to each other in what I understand. You obviously might know a little bit more than us. So, yeah, let's chuck it out there. Let's go deep straight away.
This is a good topic, and I'm glad you brought it up because I have an issue with what you said in yesterday's podcast.
Okay.
And it's going to lead to that. And it's not like a call you out thing, but
I'll definitely call you.
Of course, yeah.
So that's a bit of a loaded question. And the reason why it's a loaded question is because they they're not in harmony with the environment. They are absolutely devastating to the environment, to the Australian environment. Our native animals don't like them at all. Our native plants are not thriving with them there, and that's not good. And I do believe that there should be more of a nationwide, like how Victoria has their system, right, with the GMA, and get your license, you go out into public managed lands and can hunt deer. I think that should be available in all states, so recreational hunters can be the ones taking care of it.
So far, we're agreeing.
Yeah.
So
but what I disagree with, and what I think the issue is because the hunting community has those same beliefs that deer aren't doing any damage to the environment, or there's some acceptance that they're doing damage to the environment, but it's very minimized within the hunting circles, right? And the hunting voices, really do their best to minimize the damage, and that's just not what the research says. So I believe while the government didn't include recreational hunters in this proposal, that I've put a lot of effort into fighting and to include recreational hunters, is because if you look in the circles, it would be fair to assume that hunters just aren't going to agree, and I think that's really detrimental to our community, is this avoidance of the facts.
okay.
And we can go into the damage, because I've done a lot of research on deer and have my notes next to me. So,
well, I'd like to, because one thing that you've said there, that the deer do damage to our native flora and fauna. My question to you is then what is the difference between that and farming? Clearly, we're doing more damage because we simply have a bigger footprint in our agricultural industry. So in my mind, I just look at it and go, okay, the farming brings in revenue, et cetera, I understand that's a way that people make their living. But at what percentage are we doing more than the deer? Because it doesn't seem now this is obviously from a very naive point of view, it doesn't seem when we're out there hunting deer that they're doing a whole lot of damage to our wildlife and our plants. So, if you can just go in a bit more deep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first thing we have to address is whataboutisms. They're not a good basis. They're not sort of a valid argument to make to say that this one thing doesn't do damage. And to give an example of that, if you go into community Facebook groups, right? Like, for your local suburb or whatever, maybe once a week, someone will make a post and be like, keep your cats inside. And then someone else will be like, oh, they're not doing that much damage, or the cars are doing more damage, etc. It's like, just because cars are doing damage, you're creating roadkill, doesn't mean your cat isn't doing damage, right? So, bulldozing massive areas for, the continuous urban sprawl is very damaging to the environment because it's completely destroying it. Running cattle is harmful to the environment. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that deer don't do damage to the environment. And there are people who fight urban sprawl, and there are people who fight agriculture, right? So it's kind of not like a really, again, I'm not trying to start this off with an argument or whatever to call you out, but I would say it's not really a valid point to make, because just because one thing does one thing doesn't mean something else doesn't do another thing, right? So if you had a particular cause of damage that you want to talk about by deer, I've got notes on like plants, how they might impact with predators, how they might change the environment, got habitat engineering, soil, all sorts. We can talk about that. It'll be a very long podcast if we do.
Well, I would like to get into that, but
all right.
Like you look at that and you look at roos, surely they're doing just as much damage. So it's a justification thing here to basically, in my mind, to feel better about managing, not eradicating, personally. So, let's get into some of the nitty-gritties, I reckon.
Yeah, okay. So something to understand about managing, eradication is a form of management, right? And I'm definitely not advocating for eradication. So with management, first ask you to define what that means.
Controllable numbers to where they're not having a great impact on our native flora and fauna, but still allowing the species to live.
Okay, so when considering that, there's something called a minimum viable population when we talk about population ecology. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the minimum population that so the minimum amount of numbers that a species needs to be able to reproduce successfully without inbreeding, right? And that's dependent on the species intrinsic rate of increase, so how much they actually reproduce, per year or per reproduction cycle, and then the available land. And then conversely, there's a maximum allowable, maximum viable population, kind of, before it gets too damaging. And so then what we're talking about is like, okay, there's also a number that she's, are predicting where they don't do damage to the environment, right? What if that number is lower than the minimum viable population? I'm not saying it is or isn't, but when you're proposing managing so that there's still some around that you can hunt, but it's a low enough numbers it's not damaging to the environment. Well, what if that number where it's not damaging to the environment is lower than the minimum viable population?
I dare say that'll probably happen a fair bit around Australia, depending on where exactly it is too.
Yeah. I mean, it's ecosystem dependent, right? Because each area, each environment has different energy levels. Energy being, how many, I guess, in herbivore terms, is how many calories it can produce with its foliage, with its edible resources, and its water resources and stuff. So the Victorian highlands or whatever probably can support a lot more than like West Queensland. So it is area dependent, but I want you to keep that in mind when proposing, say, this management thing and using the argument, okay, like we just want, like, yeah, I'm okay with them being in low enough numbers to not damage the environment, but what if just that number is so small that then that animal can't reproduce successfully without inbreeding? Then you're in a bit of a pickle.
True. I see what you're saying. Definitely see what you're saying. I guess, and I'm sort of reading between the lines with what Josh is saying in terms of like the trade-off, and what you were saying earlier, Daniel, in terms of, you can't just go, well, don't worry about this because this thing's doing more damage over here. Like that doesn't diminish the fact that the deer are doing damage. But, on a grand scale of things, there's a focus on deer because they're a pest species versus kangaroos, which probably do a shit ton of damage as well. And what are the population differences? How much damage are kangaroos doing versus deer, sort of thing? But we don't manage kangaroos to the same extent as the focus is on managing deer because they're a feral introduced species. So it's a bit of a weird one for us as hunters, I guess, because you can hunt or cull roos. I never call it hunting roos. It's always just culling roos on a tag versus hunting deer, which is more of a recreational pursuit. Yeah, it's just different areas of focus, and it kind of is frustrating as a hunter when you go, well, I can see this stupid dumbass roo over here doing all this damage, and there's so many of them versus something I actually enjoy hunting.
It's not just roos. I mean, you got pigs, which do a fair bit of damage up your way. As far as I'm aware, I haven't heard of any eradication plans for pigs. I'm sure there has been, and it has been proposed. But say for the southeast of SA, it's just like PIRSA are hell-bent on killing every deer. And if there are deer in pens, they've got to be ear-tagged and all the rest of it. Outside of ear-tagged, that's it. They're all done. And I get that from sort of like a disease sort of management. Okay, I get that. Controlling your herd and things like that. But I don't understand why it needs to be eradicated, and especially when it's in isolated pockets in the country.
Well, okay, so let's address some of the questions that you actually asked just before and I didn't answer. So with kangaroos and talking about the Australian environment, and notice I'm saying environment and not farmers' fence posts. Okay, when talking about the environment. So evolution happens over millions of years, right? Hundreds of thousands to millions of years, and there's all these biological interactions going on, which are co-drivers of evolution, like predator-prey interactions, things called short-term interactions and long-term interactions. And short-term interactions are like one-off things. So there would be your like an individual tiger eating, an antelope or something, right? I don't know if they actually interact. A lion eating an antelope. That's a one-off thing. And then maybe the antelope that got away is it because it's a little bit faster, right? And then there's like the long-term interactions, which are your things like mutualism, communism, parasitism, and stuff like that, where there's maybe a benefit for both organisms in this interaction long-term. Maybe one organism benefits, one doesn't, but isn't harmed, and stuff like that. And so kangaroos in their natural environment maybe eating this grass, and this grass has evolved to then sprout back faster. Or maybe it's got seeds in it which get pooped out, and you're probably going to be like, well, that happens with deer, but it's different. And I can explain why after. And then the numbers are controlled by just naturally the population doesn't expand, or the feed comes back at a rate which then helps the population stay stable, right? So then when we introduce deer, this extra thing on the environment, if we're just talking about, how much they're eating maybe, then that's an extra pressure on those grasses, on that foliage, right?
Yep.
And so that's the problem with introduced species, invasive species. It's a whole field called invasion ecology. And I think that there's a textbook called, I think it's just called Invasion Ecology. And I think if you're going to have like a voice in this space, and I think it's maybe essential reading because it really goes into detail about how invasion happens, why it's an invasive species. And the short of it is because it's extra pressure. Mm. And so you asked about like what they do with plants. So actually, before I go into this, I just want to be clear again. I'm not for eradication, and I wrote a very lengthy defense of recreational hunting, a very lengthy defense of recreational hunting, and submitted to this deer plan. Yep. So before anyone, because I've been attacked before by people saying like if you just talk about the deer do damage, like you're an anti-gunner, you're an anti-hunter and stuff, and it's like, listen, I do way more for the community than you, like way more. So I just want everyone to know, like I'm not for eradication of deer, and I don't agree with most of this plan. So when we're talking about like what the damage they do to plants, so we need to talk about how they find it out. So researchers will spend a lot of time in the field. That's like one of a big myth that researchers don't spend time in the field. They a lot of time in the field. They get these large areas, which maybe they get rid of all the deer in that area, or they just know there's low deer numbers, and then there's a comparable environment with high deer numbers, right? And then they just analyze and observe those two plots, or usually like 8 plots, over the course of maybe a year. So just to point out, this to preempt any like, they don't know what they're talking about, and hunters are in the field more. It's not true. So these plant studies have found like, so deer will defoliate and strip bark and break stems of saplings and any new growth, which then impedes vertical growth. And most trees need most plants need vertical growth so it can get the sun. And this creates this leads to a mass reduction in the biomass of like a shrub layer, right? So the layer closest to the ground is known as the shrub layer. So areas where there's high amounts of deer have noticeably less plant biomass in that layer. And just in general, areas with deer versus areas without in a comparable environment have much less vegetation, way less vegetation than they should. So why is that a problem? It's like, well, for certain species, I read a study like last week. I don't know how to pronounce the name of the tree. because it's weird scientific Latin name. They found when in the presence of deer, there's 19% less leaf matter. Now that's not good because leaves help with converting carbon dioxide to oxygen. We need oxygen to breathe, but that's not healthy for the tree because then there's less photosynthesis going on. It's taking in less nutrients. It's less productive overall. And you might be like, well, that's only 19%. It's like if you had let's round it up to 20. If you had 20% less calories a day, right, that's a lot.
We probably have less obesity, man. So that's probably not a bad thing. So
yeah, but there's no McDonald's for the trees, So
very true.
So
I agree that there needs to be less obesity, but the trees don't need to be less obese.
One thing you touched on before with the roos, you were saying that if they eat certain grass and the grass has evolved or whatever, it's sort of like the grass works in.
It's evolved to cope with that pressure.
Yeah, but it's also worked in to help control the numbers of the roos. So why can't we just look at it like that for the deer? Okay, they eat the trees and things like that. Okay, they eat themselves out of a habitat. In time, the pendulum swings and their numbers then suddenly decrease because we don't have really any predators here for roos, deer, etc. Apart from wild dogs, I'm talking about native predators in the typical sense that you look at a predator like.
Okay, so you're talking about so let's have the deer eat themselves out of an environment. Well, that means that state forest, that national park has just been destroyed in your hypothetical. Yeah, that's not cool. I like I don't like the national park system, but I like national parks. I like state forests. I like the forest to be a forest. Mm-hmm. So in that hypothetical, we've just had the deer destroy a whole environment.
And then I guess it doesn't affect just the deer alone. It affects all the smaller animals and the rest of the ecosystem around it.
Yeah. So areas with deer. So this comes down to like habitat engineering, right? So these are called impact studies. And areas with high populations have reductions in richness. So species richness is species diversity, how many different species there are in an area. And then there's lower numbers of abundance. So abundance is down. Abundance is just overall like total population numbers. And particularly in small mammals and in reptiles. And this is largely due to, there's a lot of reasons. First could be due to a deer could be like 90 kilos, more than 90 kilos, whereas an antechinus is like 500 grams. So there's a little bit of imbalance in terms of availability of food and how much they can actually eat in a particular area. They take up nesting material as well. Like when they're fighting or when they're creating a bed, they're digging stuff up. They're taking out available areas to bed in and areas to build their nest and all that sort of stuff. And then that in combination with their eating, that might be contributing to reduction in these small mammals and reptiles. Mm-hmm. So yeah, right.
Okay, this is this is a hard pill to swallow, to be honest, because
you have to swallow your pride, man.
I still don't think it's going to change my mind about
facts are facts.
About not eradicating.
This is exactly why it took me and Zach 3.5 hours to talk about this.
So. Well, I do want to ask, okay, with all these arguments for and against, and it's looking like there's more pros to eradicate from an
objective point of view in talking about Australian conservation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do we support then, like keeping the deer around if the pros to get rid of them are there?
Well, so understand there might be an estimated up to 2 million deer across Australia, right? And so this plan can't change any laws. It's made by a working group, I think funded by the federal government or sponsored at least. I don't know if any money has actually gone into this. And this National Feral Deer Action Plan was written by this team to just send out to land managers and to try and influence governments to spend more money on eradicating deer or at least reducing their numbers. Now, the states can't agree on anything. They can't agree on road laws. They can't agree on how to deal with firearms. They can't agree on how to teach. This plan is most likely going to have a small amount of influence, very small amount of influence, because it's, you have different government positions who have different priorities and all that. So I think you're safe in just that nothing's really going to come of this, maybe, but by the community changing, in my opinion, and I've thought about this a lot. Like I said, it's my belief that recreational hunters aren't included more is because the community has these thoughts, that the community minimizes the damage. The community wants a lot of deer around because hunting is cool, hunting's fun. And so when you've got these conservation type groups who just want to protect the Australian environment, and they're like, okay, look, we've got these tools, we've got aerial culling, we've got ground culling, we've got volunteer shooters, we might have some bio controls, and we might have poisons available. Those are all going to accept. Those, aren't going to fight us. But recreational hunters, if they're at the table, they're going to fight every single time because, they can't even agree on the fact that deer do damage. This is, just speaking figuratively, metaphorically, sort of. So I think unless the community really changes, there's not going to be much of a voice. And so if the community does change, then it can have a bit more of a voice and a bit more power to say, hey, look, the hunting contribution into the Victorian economy is almost $400 million. And per year. So if there was their system in every single state, that's a lot more money coming in. And, part of my defense of recreational hunting and why it should be included was the math to say how much hunters are actually taking in Victoria versus the Samba's intrinsic rate of increase. And it's already significant. So if the hunting community can sort of be a bit more open to the research, they can have a bit more of a voice at the table and be taken a lot more seriously and be considered as, in my hope and what my idea was, that they can be considered the main tool to use. And like I said, that might lead to eradication over 100 years, maybe 200 years. There's 2 million deer. Come on.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they want them eradicated. Recreational hunters want a lot to be around. Unless the community sort of goes, well, look, the research is right, but just at least include us. Let us be the main tool of population suppression. That's how I see it changing. I don't see the government's seeing recreational hunters as valid any other way.
So what you were talking about the numbers before, is there, from a scientific point of view, a number where they can coexist, where we can come at a happy medium? I mean,
we talked about that 20 minutes ago.
No, an exact number. Is there
an exact number? That
or percentage?
Man, that would take a lot of math. That would take a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a 10-year research project to really figure out.
It's still region dependent, though, wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I
get that it's region dependent, but if hunters can accept that, okay, they do damage,
that number might exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't currently in the literature now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It might theoretically exist, but it's not known yet.
Well, all I'm trying to think about is if you can come to the hunters with a number of sustainability, then the hunters can come and go, yeah, okay, we accept that they need to be controlled on a certain level, but we've got a number where it can all just cohesively exist. Let's work on that number and let's do that, preserve that number. Because I don't think you need to get rid of all of them to preserve our native wildlife and fauna. So if someone had a number, I'm sure hunters would be a little bit more forthcoming and going, yeah, okay, we accept it. Okay, cool. We'll stick at these numbers.
Visibility on anything is a key to being able to accept it. So you are right, I would say, from that point of view. If everyone knew that the sustainable number was X, but we're currently at this, and therefore we're allowed to go bananas and hunt this many deer, but once we get to this level, then maybe ease up a bit. Like visibility, I think would most hunters would love, but we just don't know. We're not educated. We're not all biologists like yourself, Daniel.
And it's a hard pill to swallow,
it is.
man.
And I think it's good to have people like Daniel in the hunting corner and not in the greenie corner who are pushing for, leave everything alone, don't hunt anything, anti-hunting, blah, 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 blah. So I think at the end of the day, we should all try and educate ourselves as much as possible. So kudos to Daniel for bringing some facts that we certainly had no idea, because at the end of the day, we all are recreational hunters and we love hunting and we don't want anything to threaten that, which is why I think a lot of hunters sort of bury their head in the sand and go, well, deer don't do that much damage or whatever.
Well, you can see this on some form of a scale here in South Australia. You're talking about the foliage underneath your main trees, canopy and things. In the southeast, you can see the difference especially where there's a number of deer, we'll say a small herd of 30 or something living in some tea tree, maybe not tea tree, that's probably a bad example, but some of the gums and things. The foliage underneath looks manicured, especially from where I used to live in the Adelaide Hills. Oh my God, you couldn't walk through it. It was almost worse than the Vic High Country. The bracken and all the weed and all the perennials are getting pushed out because of the weed. But it's still just high. It was up to my chest. I'm not a tall bloke, but still.
It's only 2 foot high.
You can notice a difference. But from a hunter's point of view, you're like, oh, this looks nice. It's manicured and pretty underneath the trees. That's about the extent of my thoughts when I look at it. I'm like, yeah, sick, because in my mind as well, it's like, oh, we're lowering the fire risk too. So that's a good thing. So we're like, all right.
Well,
according to Josh.
So, no, it doesn't lower the fire risk. But so there's a saying that I say, I don't know where I picked it up, and a lot of people misinterpret it because they think I'm attacking them. I'm not. So you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go into an area and, there's that low grass, maybe it looks kind of nice, there's X amount of trees around and all that, you might be like, okay, cool, that's what it's meant to look like, right? I don't know if you can hear that, but there's this like cockatoos outside my window right now, just doing the cockatoo thing. So
only just,
yeah.
So, but what you might not know is that environment is actually meant to have a lot of trees around. Maybe it's meant to have tall grass or maybe like medium height grass around. But because like that's just how you've seen that environment of just kind of nice looking short grass, a certain amount of trees, you're like, okay, that's normal, but actually normal might be way different. And that's that comes down to the habitat engineering, right? Yeah. So eating all that grass might actually, be increasing the fire risk, right? Because it's maybe creating a layer of dead grass. Tall grass has, as long as it's green, it's got some sort of water content, that sort of prevents wildfire spreading around. Just how they affect the, what do you call it, bacteria, right? The microorganisms in the soil themselves. Because deer might have a preference for one plant over another, and that's putting pressure on that one plant, and then that other plant is now spreading further. That plant might be sequestering less CO2, less nitrogen into the soil. It might have a lower temperature that it can bust at, or that it starts to burn, and that might be increasing the fire risk. Also, because now there's a change in the bacteria, there's a change in the decomposition rate of the decaying plant matter, right? So a tree loses a leaf, goes to the ground, eventually, depending on the environment, that gets eaten up by bugs, then that gets taken up by bacteria and stuff. If that changes, then there's high chance of less plant decomposition, which means there's more dead material, which means higher risk of fire. right? So, look, evolution, like I said, millions of years. Deer have been here 200.
Yeah.
So it's
Nothing's evolved to cope
it's
with
all
them.
damage.
While we're talking about grass and deer as well, you mentioned before when you were talking about kangaroos eating grass and they'll eat the seeds, pass it through, and it'll help spread. But you said deer are different.
Yeah, so deer, like I said, they might have a preference for an introduced species of plant. And then they could be contributing, or in certain areas of Victoria are contributing to the spread of invasive plants, because there's some plants that come from like their home ranges, or at least closer by than Australian plants. So they prefer those, eat them, spread that. Now, deer also are capable of generally traveling further than kangaroos. Kangaroos can definitely travel pretty far, but in a different pattern, in a different spread pattern than deer, where deer just can move from move from ecosystem to ecosystem, environment to environment. So they've eaten that grass and gone into a different biogeographical region than what the kangaroo or the macropod would have gone into, and now planted that seed in that new area. Now, invasive species aren't just overseas to Australia. Invasive species are within Australia as well. There's a fly called the Queensland fruit fly, which is meant to just be North Queensland. It's now found in Adelaide and Melbourne, and it's doing heaps of damage to fruit all the way to massive population all the way down the coast. That's an invasive species outside of North Queensland. So, it's not just things from overseas. It could be plants that are native to an Australian environment, but are not native to another Australian environment, and are being transplanted by deer. And so that's a consideration as well. That's a concern.
Yeah, wow.
We're not trying to put you on the spot here, man.
You are.
No, we're not. It's a hard question, and we can't learn unless we're taught new things. I hadn't looked at it like that personally. I just looked at it from the hunting point of view of we've got to save the deer before they're gone.
Yeah, and it's super understandable because if you've grown up hunting deer, that means a lot to you, and that makes it culturally significant to yourself, and that's really important because that's what you've done.
Yeah.
So it's very understandable, and I agree.
So how do you combat in this thing that you wrote on conservation? How did you combat the fact that the deer are doing damage, they need to be controlled, but how did you combat that to be pro hunting?
I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I think just fighting any sort of plan is not going to work. It's just going to be like, okay, that's nice, bye, right? You stay at the kids' table, we're here. They don't need to include us. My writing was to include recreational hunting and recreational hunters as at least a tool, preferably the main tool of deer population suppression. And some of the best ways to do that would be then to exert their influence, because they're ascertaining that they will have some influence over state governments. I don't think they will, but they're at least claiming that they will, to get these state governments to introduce a Victorian type system across at least Queensland and Victoria. New South Wales, I don't think would change. They probably wouldn't figure it needs to, I said nationwide, but I mean, realistically, New South Wales probably wouldn't want to change their system. Most in Australia, they don't care about what each states
cut them off and just push them off the mainland.
Yeah, exactly, right. And same with Tasmania. Why do we still have Tasmania?
They're just hanging on by a thread.
No, look, it makes sense to adopt the same model as Victoria. For example, here in South Australia, if we just opened up public land, state forest that we could all hunt on, there's an example of how we can help with the deer numbers rather than spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on chopper culls.
Millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars. Trillions and billions of dollars on chopper culls, because that's just a no-brainer. It's a more cost-effective method of controlling the deer.
Well, it depends what you define as cost effective, right? Over what period of time? So there are very valid arguments for helicopter culls, especially if there's a new incursion into an area. Then, the idea is to get helicopters out and stop that new incursion. I'm not a supporter of helicopter culls as the most widely used tool, but look, every tool is valid in some form.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really got to be considered. So with recreational hunting, though, it doesn't cost the state anything, whereas helicopter culls would. But most importantly, ground contract shooters cost the state, and even volunteer shooters cost the state because they get reimbursed with their accommodation, fuel, and sometimes ammunition. Whereas recreational hunters actually contribute to state economies, and that's the biggest thing. But to be in complete denial that helicopter culls are useful is another contributor to just people not caring about what recreational hunters have to say, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I'm sure they serve their purpose, but I'm sure everyone here in South Australia, for example, would happily pay a permit for every year.
Tag fee.
Or tags or whatever to be able to hunt state forest. And that's
100%.
That's an income stream for the government.
Yeah.
Straight away.
Yeah. Right. And look, I don't agree with tags because it's kind of pointless to do a tag system that will kind of maybe stop people from going out because they need to buy a tag on top of the license. But, a yearly fee you can go into state forests, that would contribute to so much deer reduction. And they haven't even, Queensland state government barely considers it. South Australia doesn't really consider it. But I would say it's really important because, something that they miss with helicopter culls and ground culls is what do you do with the meat? Now there's a whole surplus of edible biomass, right, of meat. And there was a study done in Victoria of this research team went out with some hunters and they got 30 deer, right? I think maybe it was 27, but it's 28. It was that's around up to 30. And butchered them to the same state that a hunter would, because they used hunters, and then put them in the forest by a fence line with the farmer's permission. By fence line, a certain amount of distance inside, like a medium distance inside the forest, and then pretty far in the forest as well, in the state forest, in this wide area. They brought camera traps up, and 70% of those deer were scavenged upon by wild dogs, and 60% were scavenged on by foxes. And it's predicted that a sudden availability of edible biomass could contribute to wild dog reproductive success, including foxes. But what's really interesting is that the most scavenged upon carcasses were in that medium distance, not by the fence line or further in the forest, which makes sense because those two spots are where they're hunted most. But yeah, so if just those ones that have most of the meat taken out are being scavenged upon and could be contributing to wild dog population number increases, then what about a whole deer carcass? That's so much edible biomass.
Yep.
Now, what about a helicopter cull? Let's say 100, just for math's sake, whatever. 100 in one area. That's a lot of new edible biomass for wild dogs.
And that happening over a 10-year period would just sort of multiply that increase.
Quite a lot. So by not at least including some sort of butchering systems, so by recreational hunters or just butchers with the skill and wanting to go out and get this meat, if their plan is successful, in that they get over the 10-year period all these deer killed, that could very well increase wild dog numbers and fox numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a great argument in support of hunting.
Yeah. I was just thinking that before. I'm like, well, this is going down the road of support.
That alone, because as
I was reading off my submission.
I mean, as we're sort of discovering, you change one variable with any sort of species or environment, it has a flow-on effect to other species or other environments. So you just have to sort of look down the line to whatever you're doing to see what the flow-on effect's going to be, regardless. So, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that deer, whether you eradicate them or suppress the numbers or whatever, they should be hunted and the meat should be retrieved. Like, that should be the method, I think. Not just because I'm a hunter, but because any other method, there is just, as you call it, edible biomass or a dead fucking deer sitting there for something else to come and eat. And then, things like wild dogs, their numbers thrive. So it's very interesting.
Are you at all concerned about... Oh, wow. I'm having some brain farts.
I'm concerned about you at the moment.
Can you skull that Jax for us? Just skull it.
Are you concerned about, though, if they do push forward to the eradication, that there's going to be no more deer left, that suddenly you're talking about a flow-on effect, suddenly you're flowing on and now you're taking a reason to have firearms away. So that's another reason for them to be like, oh, hunting is not a justifiable reason now to own, or deer hunting, I should say,
that'd be
in this case, to own a firearm. So suddenly we've got a flow-on effect now from law-abiding firearm owners.
Yeah, but you'd have the reason to hunt.
I got someone nodding.
You'd have the reason to hunt the dogs that have just gone
For
up
10
through
years.
the numbers.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And
So
there's all
what
other
you just
species
said
as well.
is exactly how I've been attacked over the years by me saying that deer do damage. Just me saying deer do damage. People then sort of start that train of thought and then say, well, you're anti-gun. That's nuts. My whole income over the past decade has been due to guns being legal, so I can't have them become illegal. So I'm definitely not. But you might be right, because hunting is a genuine reason, right? Hunting is part of the genuine reason for owning a firearm. But goats still exist, brumbies still exist, wild dogs, I guess, will exist even more. Pigs still exist.
Rabbits.
Foxes.
But if you're going to take out deer, they're going to want to eventually go for goats.
About gun becoming legal, then do something about it. Then write to your politician.
So, sorry, man.
Sorry,
can you...
the internet just had a fart.
Yeah.
So. Can you just say that again,
right,
mate?
Yeah, the NBN here is atrocious. So look, if you're concerned about guns becoming illegal, just do something. Write to your politician, and don't whinge. Whinging's silly.
Yeah.
But do something. If you're that concerned, then yeah, do something.
But I think my concern was it'll become a reason to suddenly that hunting is not a justifiable reason, because it's not going to just stop at deer. If they're eradicating the deer because they're causing damage, well, goats will do the same thing, pigs will do the same thing, wild dogs will do the same thing. So getting back the country to its original form, you need to remove all these things. Now, whether it's possible or impossible to do in 50 years, okay, whatever. 100 years, okay, might be. And it may not affect our generation, but the next generation or the next generation. So is it this thing where we go, okay, yes, we'll use hunters as a tool to help manage, the underlining word being manage deer, manage feral species in general, but accept a level of numbers, to just coexist.
Look, if your defense of firearm ownership is that we need these things which are damaging the environment, then that's not a very good defense of firearm ownership. And I guess you just need to work on making firearm ownership, because guns are freaking cool, a really a valid argument for why guns should be legal, right? So it's very possible to say that deer, goats, pigs, the things we like to hunt, are damaging to the environment, and that guns should just be legal in general because I like to shoot stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I do. Now, you might be like, well, the politicians will never agree to that. Well, make them agree to it, right?
Yeah.
Write to them, write to your politician and make them agree.
while you're on the writing to them about it, like obviously some people will be probably put off about what do I write, how do I write it, because I don't want to be perceived as like not important or it's not worth reading. Firearm Owners United, they do templates and stuff like that for the governments.
Yeah,
Yep.
me. I write those.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Which, I mean, you guys messaging me saying you want to make that a separate podcast, but
Yeah, we can touch on it because it's a topic.
But yeah, so for Firearm Owners United, over the course of a year, we'll do a certain amount of like letter writing campaigns, right? Where we find an issue that is a nuisance to firearm owners, but changing it to be more in favor to firearm owners will be a winnable thing and publicly palatable. So something that like if it gets changed, the public most likely isn't going to be like, oh, that we're turning into a fascist right-wing gun nut country. That is going to be like, oh, it's just like a change, whatever. Because like over time, then that should lead to some pretty, lots of small changes will lead to big changes. So we find these issues, write up, find where they are in the legislation, whether it's federal or per state. When it's per state, that's a lot of effort. But it's all the bulk of the firearm laws are state, legislation. And, it's like, hey, here's an issue. It's like, my name is X. I'm a shooter. Here's an issue. This affects me this way. This won't, if changed, won't cause any issues in terms of public safety. Can you, please like vote in favor of it being changed, etc. And or look into it depending on how I've written it. Signed my name here, right? And that's on the Firearm Owners United website, and we put them up every few months. And you can just like copy and paste it into Word or whatever. Spell your name right, spell your address right, spell the minister's name right. I can't like spoon feed you.
Yeah.
Some people like don't do it because they're like, oh, who's my parliamentary member? I'm like, I don't know. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know. Like, just you do it yourself, right? You put your name in, save it as a PDF, send it to your politician, to your representative. That's it. Then you've done something.
Yeah.
And that should take 10 minutes if you're decent with computers. It will take 15 minutes if you're not decent with computers.
Half an hour.
And then I've had success with that. I have letters somewhere nearby where we might be seeing some big changes. Well, I shouldn't say big. Well, one thing will be big changes over the next few years, very much in favor of firearm owners, just because I sent these emails to my politician through my personal email. I forgot to log in through the Firearm Owners United email and send it. So as far as this politician knew, like it was just like me, like an individual. And then he went he represents himself on behalf of me to the Attorney General. And then another one my state member went to the Minister for Police to argue in favor of what I wrote to them for these changes, right? That was just like one person. So if we can, go over this in the Firearm Owners United dedicated podcast, but if people just did something, like if it's a state issue, right? And we got 100 people in 10 different electorates to write in, then that's 10 different ministers getting 10 letters each. So they're going to be like, okay, this is an issue, right? Mm-hmm. So then they go to the Minister for Police, who is in charge of the weapons legislation. There's 10 different ministers going to this person and being like, hey, we need this change. There's a good chance that at least a bill will be introduced into Parliament.
Yeah.
So you can definitely argue in favor of firearm ownership and accept that these animals do damage to the environment. Mm-hmm. You can do both.
Yep.
It takes 10 minutes of your time.
100%. Well, hopefully that
takes hours of my time. 10 minutes of your time.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you for your hard work.
Awesome. Yeah, you're absolutely smashing it.
Hopefully that whets people's appetite because, as Daniel alluded to, we're going to do an expert series podcast dedicated to Firearm Owners United and picking Daniel's brain about what goes on there. And, as you can tell, Daniel knows a fair bit. So look out for that one in the very near future. I'm going to say this tongue-in-cheek, but I think the strongest argument you can make for being a gun owner just say I identify as a gun owner in 2023, and then I dare anyone
can't take it away from you.
I dare anyone to take it away from you.
Yeah, honestly, and especially because like as a sport, it's easily the most inclusive and equal sport, right?
100%.
So in terms of target shooting, someone in a wheelchair can shoot just as well, you know, in like bench press competition as someone who's not in a wheelchair. Whereas if you have someone like fully able-bodied versus someone in a wheelchair in basketball, like that's no competition really.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's completely equal. The gender differences don't really add up. You know, like they're not really a factor like they would be in like tennis or MMA. But in shooting, it's really skill based. It's not really, you know, your physical strength isn't the most important factor.
Yeah.
So as a sport, it's easily the sport that can include the most people.
Yeah, definitely. Agree with that. Well, what do you reckon? Should we we've asked some hard questions. Should we ask Daniel some easy?
Should we start the podcast?
Yeah, let's start the podcast and ask him some easy
I
questions.
wasn't sure if we were just going to just breeze away from those questions.
Hey, but we can do what we want. Sometimes
We
we
can do a
get onto
speed
a
round.
tangent and we go, hello.
We'll see how far we get.
See where we end up. But we'll ask you the easy ones, Daniel, so people actually know who this guy is who speaks so well on conservation and gun ownership. So where are you actually from, Daniel?
Southeast Queensland.
Yep. Born and raised, always been there?
Yeah. Born and raised Southeast Queensland.
Easy. Would you live anywhere else?
I'm considering moving to Victoria.
Yeah.
A job opportunity has sort of come up, so maybe.
There you go.
Oh, if you're in Vic, we'll it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to SA. We'll get you out for a deer hunt.
I can do a lot more deer hunting, a lot more conservation.
We'll just go over to Vic.
Or vice versa.
Very true. All right, well, the next one, roll it off. What's your favourite food, Daniel?
Yeah, it's got to be either like chocolate or ice cream, hey? And I think that's what I wrote. I hope it is.
It gets quite a bit, to be honest.
Oh, look,
Yeah.
I'm partial to a bit of ice cream, to be honest.
The problem is, if I buy, I will eat it. I can go months and months without buying. Like I get the same thing from the supermarket every single week, exact same thing.
Yep.
And I can do that for months at a time. As soon as I buy like 180 gram block of chocolate, it's gone within maybe 30 minutes. Like it's done. Yeah. I feel sick for the whole day.
Yeah.
So like it's my favorite, but I got to stay away from it. You know, like it's not good.
What's your favorite chocolate?
Like what the cheapest one is.
So you're not fussy about your chocolate, you just want chocolate.
Oh yeah,
Simple.
yeah. And look, it's got to be. I don't like the ones with fruit in it. That's silly. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing putting fruit in chocolate? That's not good. The nuts in chocolate, that's not good either. You know, when there's like double chocolate with inside of it, that's fantastic. I like that. But don't make it complicated.
I like it.
What about caramel? Caramel and chocolate go.
Nah, caramel.
Well, here's the thing, Queensland, unless you put it in the fridge real quick, man, that's not good. That's making a mess.
Yeah. Very melty. All right, Daniel, what was your first job, mate?
So like I consider myself to have like 3 different first jobs just because they're all so different. Like really, it was at Hungry Jack's at like 14.
There's nothing wrong with flipping burgers.
Oh yeah. But they didn't like train me or anything. They were just like, hey, like you stand here, you do this. And then they'll be like, why aren't you doing this other thing? I'm like, could you tell me? Like, what are you talking about? So that only lasted like 6 months.
It's called
It didn't last
OJTs.
too long.
It's called on-job training.
Yeah.
Hey, Daniel?
Yeah, but the managers were just like standing around all day. They didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's what managers do.
It's because they're 16.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I was 14. The manager was like 16, like going to the same school, like yelling at me at Hungry Jack's and like ignoring me at school. Like
They're just as lost as you.
All right, here's a question. Hungry Jack's or Macca's?
Macca's.
Well, neither if I have a choice.
If you had a choice.
Pick between the two.
Man, like that flame grill, that's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
But the convenience of Macca's.
I don't know why I didn't include KFC into that list. Like, come on, man.
Because the burgers are better at Hungry Jack's.
Fuck off.
It's in the slogan.
It's true. Like KFC is great, but I mean KFC is expensive. You know, that's like if you're going out like if you're going nice. So the KFC is like a dress up.
You get what you pay for with KFC.
Honey, I'm taking you to a fancy restaurant tonight.
Yeah. KFC is like you put on a button up and you go in there.
Going out on a gurney.
If I'm spending $50, I'm not going out in like my pluggers. You know?
Fair enough.
KFC's expensive, bro.
So you mentioned a couple other things. What else did you get up to as a teenager for a job?
So I didn't have I just did like odd jobs around until after I left school. And then my first job after school, I can't really talk about because that was interesting. But the job after that, when I was still 17, was the gun shop down the road, Australia's largest gun shop.
Were you a male prostitute for a year?
That's everyone's first guess.
That's where we're on.
Yeah, so
I have a feeling it's a drug runner.
I'm like, yeah, it's either drugs or
It's
prostitution.
legal. It's completely legal. It's just confidential.
Okay, no, that's fair enough.
Fair enough.
It's very interesting that I got it at the age I did and had to sign all that paperwork being like, oh, you can't talk about it and stuff. But I don't give a shit. So,
FBI.
nah, we don't have that. But then after that, when I was 17, at the gun shop down the road, and that was neat. That was interesting. 17 at the gun shop.
How long were you at the gun shop for?
So I worked there for 3 years, and yeah, as I was working, I was really well liked because my work ethic back then was I was getting there at 7:30 in the morning and leaving at 8 o'clock at night. I thought that's what you did, and it was good. I got a lot of money, and I got to have a lot of really cool experiences from doing that, like meeting international visitors and going hunting like all the time and all that sort of stuff. So it was very interesting. Don't think I'll do those hours again, but for someone else.
Yeah, very nice.
How many hours do you work for yourself?
As many as I want to. My income seems to be proportional to how much effort I put in, and like some days it's a bit, whatever. I can scrape by, and other days I'm like, all right, I need money. Let's do a lot of work. Let's put a lot of effort into this business.
It's amazing how quickly money motivates you.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
You would have had some interesting experiences of people coming into the gun shop, and something we talk about a lot is people coming in with no idea and being sold a 300 Win Mag when they've never shot a gun before. Like, you would have seen blokes.
You're welcome.
Dude's cheesy grin on his face, mate. He's like, yeah.
But I mean, in your
I learned very quickly I'm a great salesman. But yeah, that was something that actually would come up a lot. Workers would say all the time, like they kind of feel bad about selling someone like an expensive firearm like a Seiko when a dude just want, like an entry level Savage or whatever. And that was something that sort of played on my mind a lot actually while working there. So yeah, like you're right. Using a gun shop as your introduction to firearms is not good. Get a mate.
Yeah. I mean, I did spend a bit of time in sales as well. And I would say, well, I haven't worked in a gun shop, obviously, but, you want to keep your customers for a long time and have longevity and repeat sales. That was always the key. So, I mean, if you sell someone a 300 Win Mag and they've never shot a gun before, then the chances are they're going to try it, hate it. The recall is going to be ridiculous, and they're never going to come back. You're never going to sell them a thing again. Whereas if you actually give them some proper advice and say, hey, maybe you should start off with the 22, try that. We'll set you up with that. Here's all your ammo you need. Recommend a few things there, and then we'll move you on. And then same guy's coming back. He's buying a 223. He's buying a 308. He's buying a shotgun. And I think that's a much more sustainable sales plan in terms of repeat customers. So you sort of had experiences around that.
And that's what I would do. But if someone insists that they want to buy that 300 Win Mag, it's like, all right, bro, sure. But if someone comes in and is like, hey, like, I want to get my first gun or whatever, it's always like, yeah, all right, get a 22. Get a 22 and at least trying to work on like, flinching and just the noises and all that and holding it before you start getting like a 308 or whatever, for sure.
Yeah, you're always going to get people that don't want to listen, though. There's always going to be someone coming, oh, my mate's got a 308, I've got to do something bigger. Like, I've got to beat him, even though I've never shot anything before.
It'll kind of almost benefit the hunting community, not instantly, and I think I'll annoy a few people by saying this.
Ooh.
Kind of like the handgun rules where you have to start with a 22. That's your first caliber you got to buy. before you buy any other caliber. Obviously, your farmer's son that's grown up around guns, it would sort of annoy them.
Yeah.
But for the majority of shooters that are just getting into it, it's probably a safe way for them to get into it, and it gives them the best chance to enjoy it.
Yeah, but
And not
how
get
many
put
of
off.
those guys that are starting off with a 22, say their dad owns 10,000 acres and then they go try and whack some roots
Yeah,
with
but
it?
that's a minority, man. That's a minority. But yeah,
what
I understand
is it?
I understand there's going to be the people have shots all their lives, they just haven't had a license.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It was just a thought I just had then.
Okay.
What do you reckon, Daniel?
Well, I don't agree with more legislation or more rules. So I would say no. But as a self-imposed rule, yeah, and that's what people do. That's what the community really says to do.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's already anytime you go into a hunting group, it's okay. What should I start with? Everyone already says you're 22.
Yeah.
So it's up to people to listen or not. There's heaps of YouTube videos of people not listening and the consequences of that.
They're the best ones.
So
I've witnessed that firsthand, actually. We all have a mutual mate, and he got into shooting because of us, and he didn't listen to a thing any of us said. He got a 22, which is fine, which is good to start off with, but straight away he's gone out trying to hunt medium-sized animals with a 22.
Yeah. I was trying to work out what you're talking about then. I worked it out. Yeah.
And you're like, when you find out, you're like, bro, what are you doing? Or
yeah,
That's education.
no, you didn't listen to a thing that any of us were teaching you or told you or whatever. And I understand that's quite a difficult thing to do when it's a mate of a similar age.
Especially, it's pretty difficult to kill medium game with a 22.
No, like listen to what your mate's telling
Yeah.
you. And okay, but he learnt the hard way. And then he ended up going on the opposite end of the spectrum immediately and bought something he couldn't handle. Oh dear, it didn't end well for anyone really, but that's all right. He's learnt now.
live and learn.
Yeah.
Everyone makes choices. You gotta, accept the consequences of those choices.
Yeah, well, he went out and bought a BLR in 308, the Browning, lever 308. And he developed a flinch and a frustration and a hatred for this gun, and couldn't hit anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty common.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say it's common, but like it happens in terms of, things that go wrong. That's one of the most common things, I think.
Yeah.
Was it hard working in the gun shop, Daniel, in terms of just being like a kid in a candy store and just having stuff you want to buy at arm's length at all times? And I'm assuming you'd have staff discount and all that sort of stuff. Was it hard?
Well, my first gun was 2 guns at the same time. So
My man.
at one stage, my gun safes were full. You can infer what you want from that. But I've always been pretty good with saving money and not being reckless. But look, gun addiction is real, I think. I see it all the time. Like it's something I've taught a lot of people, like when they first get into firearms and when I was teaching as well. It's like, look, gun addiction is very real. Like you just buy them, like, damn, that other one looks really cool. It's a slightly different caliber, so I definitely need it. Or maybe it's the same caliber, but like this gun's a bit lighter than this first gun, and it's got a different pattern on it or whatnot. It's a real thing. Gun addiction is a real thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you infer from that, to answer your question.
100%. Well, while we're here, let's cross off question 10. What was your first rifle or rifles?
So the first 22, at least, I bought a 22 and a 223 at the same time. The first 22 was a PWS T3. So that was one of the first straight pulls that came to the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're called something else now. And a Remington 7615.
Very nice.
So not really fantastic first firearms because I think your first rifle should really be like a bolt action that you can take the bolt out of to really get like the bore sight in properly and like learn how to clean guns properly and all that. So not fantastic first rifles, but super cool. Super fun.
Yeah, good fun.
What do you think of the 7615 over, say, a Warwick?
Oh, man. How to say this without any sort of like
Crushing.
lawsuits? I would not have either in my safe.
I beg your pardon? Whoa! Really?
Yeah,
It's
no.
from Josh's own
And
boat.
I mean, and I've had cat C's and D licenses and firearms and all that, and yeah, I would not have either of those in my safe.
Ah. All right. So along the same sort of platform, pump or straight pull, is there one you'd recommend? Or you wouldn't?
Those differences would just come down to individual preferences.
Mhm.
My issues with Remington, at least, is since most of their time in the 21st century have not been good quality.
Mhm.
Remington, since being owned by one company, in the name of a dog, had their quality really drop, and then they've been sold and rebought numerous times, and their quality just, in my opinion, and many others' opinion, just drops. And I wouldn't have. I don't really have American guns in my safe.
Oh, right. Well, the Warwick's Australian.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm for my purposes, I wouldn't have one. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's
they're
fair.
large, they're heavy.
Yeah.
Josh doesn't need a purpose. That's the. So gun addiction is a real thing.
Yeah, it is. It
And
is
it's
a real
right over
thing.
there.
No, I feel you. I feel you right when you said that. I'm like, yeah, okay. You get drawn to shiny new things. You're like, oh, I've got to try it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Look, if more people bought from Eureka Tactical, I might buy a Warwick. But
Nice plug.
at the moment, I definitely wouldn't spend that over like a Tika or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your go-to in your safe at the moment?
Either my Tika, which is a 223, or I've got a Weatherby Vanguard in 308. Either of those two, depending on the purpose, would probably be my go-tos. Or
how do you find the Weatherby? You obviously like
pretty
it.
good. So I like it a lot. I mean, in terms of quality, Japanese made, fantastic. The stock is great. The Weatherby, the Vanguards have like recoil reduction in the stock. They have like these foam inserts or something like inside the stock. So good recoil reduction, and yeah, it's accurate. I mean, it's like guaranteed to like 1 MOA or something. So it's good enough, right?
Yeah.
A pig is larger than 1 MOA.
Yeah, it's minute a deer. That's for sure.
Daniel, who inspires you the most?
Yeah, this is something I struggle with. I don't really gain inspiration from anyone. I just make things up as I go, and if something works, it works. If it doesn't, every day trying to do something. But
hang on, mate. We just had another
What
internet brain
inspires
fart.
me is the fucking NBN because it's such an amazing piece of equipment.
Would you
Love
like
the
some
NBN.
NBN?
So you better repeat that for us. Sorry.
yeah, so I was saying, I don't get inspiration from anyone. I just do things.
So would you
I want to
say
try and be better every day. Like I work out so that I feel good and strong. I read, so I'm smarter the next day, and I can be more well read. And I listen to people to try and get a better world view and all that. So I do that, but it's not because of like any singular person being like a massive inspiration.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Can I can I simplify the question?
Resort back to our original
No.
wording.
I'll simplify this question. Who's a celebrity you think is cool?
Celebrity, I think, is cool.
it's simplified?
Well, I don't really like celebrity
Oh
culture.
Jesus!
All right. What
that's-
about a famous hunter or something like that you sort of enjoy watching or enjoy?
That I enjoy watching. Oh man, I don't mind listening to the Woodstock podcast, the Woodfire podcast with Benny O'Brien. I think he does a good podcast. I like listening to him. It's cool.
Sweet. I'm glad we got there in the end because I'm like, how much more can I reduce this question? Like, what porn star do you jerk off to? We got an answer. Sweet.
We got there.
We changed that question for this season because too many people with the previous question were just like, oh no, I'm happy. I'm happy with my life. I wouldn't trade places with anyone.
That's a good
See,
thing.
I have an answer for that. But you didn't ask that, so you don't get it.
Bloody hell. All right, well, we won't stuff you then. We'll just keep rolling through.
No, I want to now ask. I want to know. Who would you trade places with, even if it was just for 24 hours?
I think it'd be really interesting to trade places with someone with no injuries. No one specific, just someone who does not have any injuries. And I think that'd be really interesting because I have many injuries and it's just like annoying.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's people who just wake up and like live their life. There's nothing going on. I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I'll get it.
That makes sense.
I'll get it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure each of you guys have some sort of injury. I mean, you guys are in your early 30s or late 20s.
Mid-30s.
Mid-30s.
Well, these guys are mid.
Oh, shut up.
I was trying to be nice. And so, yeah, I'm sure every now and then, like your knee would play up or a back would be painful.
It's getting harder and harder.
Interesting, right? And so, wouldn't it be interesting just like to spend a day just being like, oh man, like I woke up nice. I think like
It'd be fun.
I think it'd be really interesting.
It'd be fun doing the old Freaky Friday and just switching bodies for a day.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Who would you Freaky Friday with? I'm going to turn this stuff around. I'm going to take over this podcast. Who would you guys Freaky Friday with? Each of you go.
Jesus.
Oh,
Not Josh.
bro.
Say that.
The tables have turned. This is quite difficult now.
I'd probably just say a woman, just to see what.
No, you just want to bash yourself. Yeah, not get outdoors.
Just to see what all
So
the
you
fuss
guys
is
are
about.
just answering. You guys are asking all these questions and being like, "Oh man, this is so hard to get an answer out of him." Now you guys, you know,
We did give you a heads up on these.
Yeah. This is a question
that's our
without
defense.
notice.
yeah, but I would have had an answer yesterday, maybe, and well,
Fair call.
Look, it would probably be like I got three people. Okay,
No, you said one. So choose.
no, I can't. It'd be I reckon the Steve Ranella, Joe Rogan, or Cameron Haynes. Well, actually, even David Goggins. Yeah,
come on, man.
He'd be pretty insane to be in his body for a day. Yeah, motherfucker.
He's got like no cartilage in his knees, bro.
Yeah, but just his mindset, man.
Josh is used
That's
to
the
that.
same as you.
Josh is used to it. He'll get along fine.
just his mindset would be insane. I like how Steve Ranella articulates himself, actually. I find him very fascinating just in the way that he speaks. And obviously being a writer, he's got to be good at it. But I'd love to be in that mindset for 24 hours personally. But that's me. Go.
I don't know. Just a woman. I just want to see what the fuss is about. Like, not because I'm like downing I'm quite happy being a man. I just want to see what it's like how different it is.
are you sure? Do we have some, gender therapists in here, and
Let's break this down, shall we, Daniel?
Oh, this could get weird. Like I could, if I'm changing bodies with someone else, I could feel what
they
it's
have
like.
your body now.
Yeah, and I could feel what it's like to be fucked by me. I could do that. I'll change that.
There are so many things wrong with that, bro.
I'm not thinking this through. Like I said, it's a question without notice.
You know you can do that.
But just
You
say
can do that now.
what?
What?
No,
How?
I just-
Explain.
Come on, man.
how can,
How can you do that now?
Go on.
Really?
Really?
Do we have to take the back door into this?
Yeah, but how's he going to feel himself? How's it?
There's more than one way to skin a cat, I'm sure.
Come on,
Be
man.
possible.
Does yours like bends back down or something? Like,
It's pretty big.
What are you
Definitely
talking
not
about?
that long.
That's where he's going. That's where he's going.
I thought he was going for the whole like the molded dildo thing, like you can mold it out of
Yeah,
your
you
own.
can do that.
and then just fuck himself with his own
All right,
casted
well,
dildo.
I don't know who I'd change
Jesus.
bodies with for a day. Someone. I don't know. Like you rather than trade places with them, like you're just trading bodies to see what their body's like what it's like to
I
feel.
feel that extends to
feel
trading
like-
places with them.
Yeah, I feel like that's the reason you want to trade bodies. It's more just trading places. Like
Yeah,
you're
I find
being
it.
them as
This is why I said a female, just because it's fascinating to me to see what Because then coming back to a male body, you're like, well, fucking shut the fuck up. It's not that bad.
But what if you enjoyed it? What if you enjoyed it and you're like, yeah, I want to transition?
That never happened.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
How do you know? Because you haven't been in a female's body, bro.
You've raised a fair point.
More weird or less weird if it was someone you knew?
Oh, probably more.
Like, would you guys rather, Freaky Friday with someone like in this group or a complete stranger?
Stranger.
Oh, yeah, stranger.
Or, then again, it'd be funny to just fuck with that person.
Yeah, are the effects when you switch back over of what you do to that body, do they carry on into their future?
Well, I think like if you switch to someone and then you're like, all right, I'm going to quit this guy's job. When you switch back, I think they might beat you up.
It's just running me into being homeless.
Yeah, just like sell everything, like give it away.
I feel like you're just like Caleb's on a downward spiral anyway, into a female's body. I don't think he needs help from any of us.
Yeah, he's already fucked.
No, surely you see what I mean, though. Just to be
Nope.
like,
I have no
I
inclination
understand
to
what
be
you
with-
mean. Like, just to...
I don't want to like change permanently, but like I know what it's like to have something swing between my legs. What would it be like to have
something inside your legs.
exactly? Because
You're
like,
curious, and that's okay. Curiosity.
I'm just a sex pest. Just leave me
Yeah.
alone. Move on.
Oh,
Quick.
you've admitted it
Your
now,
turn,
so-
Couchy.
Yeah,
Your turn.
you're up.
Well, I'm going to stick with my podcast that I had the start of season 5 is Elon Musk. So just to sort of know what goes through his head.
So you want to experience autism for a day?
Yeah, sure.
How would you feel knowing that like now he's in your body and he's probably depressed?
Oh, he'll hate life. Like,
What's
He-
one
I gotta
plus
live
one?
this guy's life?
no, he'll definitely hate life and he'd rather go back. But I reckon it'd be cool. But that's the only real reason.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get it. I can see where you're going with that.
No weird.
That makes
fucking,
more sense than a female.
No weird body morphia or fucking just some weird fetish.
I just want to see what all the fuss is about. That's all I want.
No, you just want to be able to shave your own crack while looking at it.
There's blokes out there trying to become females. Like, I want to see what the fuss is about. I don't fucking want to do it permanently. I just give me a taste.
We are
what's
not
the deal?
friends anymore.
What's the deal?
You want to taste yourself now as well. All right. You can do that now, bro.
Oh shit, this is getting weird, and I
And
feel like
you-
I've backed
this is
myself into a corner.
This is your fault, Daniel.
yeah.
Oh, I know.
You
I know.
instigated it all, man.
We're scrapping these questions for the next one. Not that we do it for the expert.
No, I
but,
think I'll just edit it and put all this half in the front and the dear questions at the back. No, I won't do that. Well, let's stay true to
keep it
form.
authentic.
Cool. All right. Well, next question. What was the most dangerous thing you've ever done, Daniel?
So yeah, like aside from this Brisbane's public transport late at night, a decade ago, over a decade ago now, did the whole like go overseas to a not good country and build and all that sort of stuff, and that was a bit how you going. They had just finished a civil war, which really was not finished, and I was living with people like teenagers in a hostel who were taken to be child soldiers. So they had just finished being child soldiers and told very interesting things about things that were going on in the country. That was a pretty not safe time, I would say. Aside from that, I mean, in terms of like hunting stories, we almost like died from smoke inhalation, or was very close to being attacked by a pretty venomous snake at uni whilst doing some stuff. There's a whole bunch of things we can go down. There's no one more dangerous than the other, I'd say. Depends what you want to hear.
That sounds interesting. Your hostel stay. That sounds. Yeah. Why'd you go over?
Something to do.
Oh, right.
You know,
Just bored.
you know how it is.
Did you spin
Yeah.
the globe and just be like, yeah, I'm going
I mean,
there?
it was an opportunity that came up, and I was like, yeah, that sounds neat. I guess they didn't predict that the country was not as safe as the country proclaimed it was, and that sort of stuff. But it's very interesting. It really helped form the basis of why I think guns should be illegal. staying with people who had their own government try to kill them, and then telling me the stories about that. So, I mean, there's some pretty good takeaways aside from people wanting us to be dead and all that sort of stuff. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, bloody hell.
Makes sense.
From the children that were soldiers, or the child soldiers, you would have got some pretty interesting stories from those, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, they're their stories, though. You know, a few of them aren't alive now, but that's their stories to tell of being child soldiers and growing up. So it's not really mine to tell. But yeah, I mean, they were telling me interesting things, and like I said, it was an experience that really formed the foundation of why I think gun ownership should be legal, and really validated the United States Second Amendment to me, for sure.
Yep.
That'd do it, I reckon. That'd certainly validate it.
When you can see a reason in front of your face, and
How did they feel about it? Did you have that discussion with them about firearm ownership?
We did not have that discussion.
You didn't?
I wouldn't imagine you would have, because they're sort of just like dealing with
Coming out the brunt of it,
like that's a lot to deal with, especially as a kid. I couldn't imagine it. Like, the stories would be harrowing, and you know, like, I think of it through the lens of like my kids who are 7. They're twins. For people who think I'm weird, I keep saying my kids, and yes, they're both the same age because they're twins. But like, to imagine them with a gun in their hand at that age and being asked to go and do the atrocities that some of those kids are asked to do and are trained to do and are drugged up to do, it's insane. So it's a very eye-opening thing, I imagine, that for you, just hearing some of those stories and seeing what went on.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, like I said, it was an experience, and it was an experience to have. It just, the end result is it formed a lot of the foundation of a lot of my current beliefs.
Yeah.
Were they able to still have a good time, like, you know, laugh and smile, or was it very morose?
Oh yeah, they were so happy. Every interaction, they were smiling, they were happy. They were just, look, the people in really these, I guess, third world countries and stuff, their interactions with you, they're just happy to be alive, right? They're not, I mean, look, there's some terrible stuff going in their life, but I mean, their baseline is so low that anything good is good. Whereas here, you know, people, you know, look, everyone's experience of life is different, and people say, like, you shouldn't invalidate other people's feelings and stuff. But look, some people's feelings aren't valid. And look, here sometimes people can live the best life and still be pretty down on themselves, and that's not great. And the people I met over there, that's happy to be alive.
Yeah.
So they were smiling, they were joking, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it's wild.
How'd you find, and because I'm very curious on this question, how'd you find the food culture whilst you were over there?
Shit myself every night. Every single night. Shit myself.
That's funny.
Bro, okay, so we had KFC on the last day there. They had an establishment of KFC. Their regular KFC was more spicy than the hot and spicy here. It's nuts. Like, doesn't make any sense. Everything was spicy.
That sounds good, though.
Why is everything spicy?
Well,
like, I went to the steak and it was spicy. No, it wasn't. It's terrible. It's the worst part.
Well, they say the Indians chuck in so many spices and curries and all that over their meat because the meat's usually shit and rotten. So it just covers that taste. And you still
I mean, that was probably the maybe the historical reasons and stuff. But yeah, probably. I mean, could be.
Kentucky Fried something.
Kentucky Fried Goat.
Yeah. Don't think it was chicken. That's
Didn't
for
start
sure.
with a C. All right, Daniel, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Yeah, so something that's been guiding like my life, I guess, is it wasn't a piece of advice. It was something my old boss said in frustration, and this is kind of how I acted. But this is the first time I heard it verbalized. his mum was yelling at him over some stuff in like his family business and all that, and just like saying this is a problem. He's like, it's not a problem, and all this sort of stuff. He's like, do you have any solutions for me? She's like, no, just fix it. He's like, whatever. She left, and he just said, look, don't complain about something if you're not going to offer any solutions.
Yeah, that's pretty wise.
Now,
Agree with that.
Yeah, and I think it's super relevant to the shooting community. You know,
Yeah.
If you scroll, if you're in the hunting groups and the shooting groups, how many posts are about people whinging about the laws or whatever?
Yeah, 100%.
Heaps. You comment, what have you done? Nothing.
Agree.
I think the problem in Australia is people believe their values or what they want doesn't matter to the government or anyone that actually makes the regulations, and they sort of forget.
Why does that matter? Do it anyway.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think that's just what demotivates people, which is obviously wrong because obviously everyone's opinion matters in volume as well, because there'll be a lot of other people that have the same thoughts and wants out of what they want to change.
We're not united in a whole. So, and the mainstream media certainly portrays you to be some fucking evil enterprise and disheartens a lot of people from even trying when you're talking about these.
Yeah, but then again, I guess if the media is going to do that, that's more of a reason to do something.
Yeah,
so, yeah, if you're going to stay quiet, you're letting them win.
True.
Now we need to re-ask him that question.
No, I think he's still following along.
I'm here.
He's still here.
Are we still on the best piece of advice you've been given or what?
Yeah. We didn't get any of that.
We were embellishing on that. So I will say I 100% agree with that because, I mean, maybe not in a shooting context, but I mean, I used to work in an office environment where it was a very big company and people used to bitch and moan about what they didn't enjoy, but they never offered a solution. And part of the reason I ended up leaving was because I had solutions. I offered them when I had a whinge, and then nothing still got done because that meant someone higher up the chain had to fucking do something. So then you're at an impasse where you're offering a solution, you've raised an issue, the people above you don't want to do anything, and that's very frustrating. Nothing's ever going to change. Bringing that back to shooting, can you see a future where things do change more in favour of the hunting and shooting community from a government level?
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing anything, right?
Yep.
Otherwise, I'd just like embrace gun laws getting worse and worse for us, and just not do anything. But as long as shooters, gun owners, etc., still just whinge on social media rather than write to their politician, then absolutely things won't change. But look, it takes us just as much effort to make a post in social media as it does to email someone.
Yeah.
So just email someone.
Do you find it a good thing that there's multiple different parties and groups and all that say they're advocating for firearm owners, but it seems like it sort of gets diluted in the amount of parties and stuff that are there, kind of thing? There's no real main fighting force.
Can we talk about that on the Firearm Owners United podcast? Because that's something I tried to rectify, and the other organizations are interesting.
We can. Stay tuned for that one. Make sure that question is included, Couchy.
Little teaser. I'll have to write that one down.
To be honest, I didn't know exactly what you're asking with that question, so maybe we can redefine it.
It's defined enough. It got the point across.
Fair enough.
I understood.
Okay, well, that's the main thing.
I got your back.
Thank you.
Sorry, Couchy. Daniel, what's your most treasured possession, mate?
My dog is lying next to me and farting, which is not fantastic, but he's a pretty cool guy nonetheless.
Well, introduce him to the listeners. What is he and what's his name?
Well, he's a dog.
And his name's Dog.
Mate, you're a biologist. I want the Latin name. Come on.
But he's a golden retriever, and his name is not public because, I worked in security for a long time. I know how to be secure.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, fuck, yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, assuming people know where you live as well. But, yeah, fair point, man, fair point. You have a dog. He is a golden retriever.
It's pretty cool.
He's anonymous.
He's pretty cute. He is.
Yeah. I like him a lot.
Pretty cute.
Yeah.
He farts a lot.
If you own a dog, I think you just got to accept the farting.
Oh, it's painful. It's painful.
How old is he?
It's just a bit of a one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So still a bit of a pup still,
100%.
but very well trained for
It
security
is.
purposes. Fair enough, man. All right, well, roll on to the next one. What's your favourite movie?
Look, there's a clear answer, and it's crazy people have different answers for this. I mean, the best movie ever made, Top Gun. It's the best. Objectively,
That's
as
a
a
good movie.
scientist, Top Gun is the best movie ever made. It hits all the elements. It's Shakespearean. It's the Greek philosophers would love it. But then in last year, Top Gun Maverick came out, and that's equally as good. So as a scientist, I'm saying like these are like the best movies ever made.
It's got all the elements there.
Yeah. I
did
have
enjoy
to
it.
admit, I enjoyed the second over the first.
What?
No, I enjoyed that. They were pretty well on par. It's not the way I thought the second would go, but it was still good.
Oh, yeah, no, I love
Good,
the
it's
second
fantastic. Look, you don't have to downplay it just because you're in front of your friends. You can say it was fantastic. It was incredible. Tom Cruise, amazing actor.
You still walked out of the movies or lounge room, depending on where you watch it, with that good feeling that Top Gun gives you.
Yeah.
So
They captured a lot of the same key elements, really, the same essence of the original.
well, yeah, it's a movie about fucking flying and
Yeah, but
fighting
how many
in the
sequels are
air.
duds, man? Like how many
Yeah.
times you watch a sequel and you go, "Fuck, that was
They
nowhere
try
near
and
as
change
good."
it too much. Yeah,
It's too try hard. They're just trying to like do some tokenism. Like, for example, Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. The original was amazing. The second one was
yeah,
a fucking
terrible.
pile of dog shit.
yeah. So what you're saying is good they kept
But
it similar.
I feel like the Church of Scientology had the money to back the fucking movie to make it good. So,
Hey man,
look,
yeah, and they're all right.
yeah, I agree though. The second one certainly captured the same essence. The first one, man, it was just too sappy. Like,
Did you watch it when it
Yeah.
came out, or did you watch it recently?
the first one.
Yeah.
No, I won't watch it again.
Because like
I
my
remember
missus hadn't seen it, so I'm like, well, you have to watch the first one before we watch the second.
Yeah.
And then so we pretty much watched it back to back, and it's still a fucking good movie for the time it was made.
Yeah, look,
You
it
forget
is.
when it was made.
It is, but it's just too sappy in parts. I'm like, boring, let's skip that.
So you're allowed to have your opinions, and
Yeah.
like if they're wrong, you're allowed to have wrong opinions.
No, I think Josh's problem was, what was the first 5 minutes like in Top Gun? Did it captivate you? Because if it didn't, you would have turned it off.
Oh, Josh is an instant gratification, man. It needs to have a death or
When
a
it
sex
comes to
scene.
movies, bloody oath, man, it needs to draw you in within like a couple of minutes. Otherwise, you're like, I'll give it 10 more minutes. If it's no good in 10 more minutes, you're just like, nah, man, bounce. I've got better shit to do.
So the opening of Top Gun is them, launching off the USS Enterprise and fighting and encountering these Russian MiGs. I mean, if that doesn't capture your attention, like we need to evaluate you or something. Like, you're wrong. It's fantastic.
Love it.
Speaking of sequels, do you know what I can't be fucked with? Avatar, the second
Oh,
one.
I've heard it's really good.
So people are telling me that. But the first one, like I remember watching the first one however fucking many years ago it was.
How many ever hours it went?
Like, yeah, it was 3 hours long, but it was when 3D it sort of first come out as well. And watching it in the cinema back then with 3D being a novel thing, it was like, fuck, amazing. Like these flowers are floating on the breeze and I can catch them. Like it was pretty cool as an experience. I just can't be bothered watching the second one.
Yeah, but you don't like mystical shit, motherfucker.
I do.
Not really.
I like anything that's sort of a different concept.
Yeah, the concept for you was 3D. That was the allure.
wait,
but the whole mystical sci-fi shit of the storyline, I can understand why you're like, nah, I'm out.
He's saying that you like Avatar,
Yeah. I
but
didn't mind
you
the
think
first one.
that like
Have you seen
Top
the
Gun
second
can
one?
be sappy and stuff.
Sorry?
Avatar can be slow in parts.
Oh, it's slow, but like there's that
But
mystical,
how did it captivate you though? That's
magical
question.
part of it, and you're like, oh, okay. I don't.
Have you
mind
watched it
slow.
recently?
I haven't seen it in ages.
Watched it once.
You should try. I rewatched Avatar a few nights ago because I was thinking about going to the movie to see the second one. It sucked. Oh my god! Like I liked it in the movies. It was fun.
Yeah, back then.
Yeah.
But then I watched it and I was like, man, this sucks. Like this is boring.
Yeah, all right. I can feel.
I feel like maybe I was seduced by the 3D back then.
yeah, because
It was amazing.
Yeah. It was crazy.
I don't think
literally you're sitting in the cinema and it was like you could reach out and grab shit and you're like, wow, this is cool.
I think I've watched one movie 3D ever, and I don't know what that one was.
Jurassic.
And I think I
Park.
took the glasses off halfway through because I'm like, it's giving me a headache.
It's funny how all that shit died in the arse, like 3D TVs and going to the movies. Just having to put glasses on just annoyed everyone.
Let's chuck goggles on instead.
No,
sit
what
down.
we
For those of
need
us who don't wear glasses.
is no screen and just a projection, just a 3D projection.
Onto what?
Nothing. Just 3D projection.
Just watch a hologram in front of you.
Yeah. That's all we need. That's all we need.
Yeah, that'd be worse. Because there's so many elements that you have to keep track of now. That'd be worse. I
Yeah,
reckon.
that'd be 'cause it'd be hard to create depth in a hologram.
Full high def.
High def hologram.
Yeah.
You're going straight out.
None of this beta phase shit. It's full high def. You can move around it and get a different angle. So you can watch a
so-
movie 4 different times.
So it
from
stays
4
in the
different
one
angles.
position and you can walk around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd make rewatching movies interesting.
It sounds like you just have a VR experience and then like choose your own adventure along the way for the movie.
It's like a
Pick your story
Bear
line.
Grylls buddy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you just need to go outside and experience life. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about the outside.
Yeah.
Like,
True. Yeah, just walk
a good
out
one.
your front
people
door.
in the city or something. Like that's what you're talking about.
Very true.
Go hunting, motherfucker.
Yeah. It's been too long, man.
It's been a few.
When was the last time you got out, Daniel?
Out hunting or out bush? The two different things.
Hunting.
Hunting. Unfortunately, uni took over most of our hunting, so I haven't gone since 2021. But that's going to change because I'm going hunting this month. Pigs
Very nice.
fairly soon, and I should be deer hunting, depending on this person, in New South Wales in a few months or this year sometime. So that'll be pretty interesting. And trying for the lack of hunting during getting my degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, at least you got to spend a bit of time in the bush, at least, out in nature.
Bush.
Oh yeah, I'm out every week.
Just take
Just
your gun.
not always hunting.
He's going out searching for bush.
I've had a few notifications tonight.
Oh. Oh.
So if you randomly bounce, it's important.
Oh no, I mean the boys obviously more important.
That's it. Bros
Yeah.
before something.
Oh, don't be too controversial. Fuck. All right. Well, next question. Who should be a guest on this podcast, Daniel?
Yeah, so as you would have noticed, I can't just answer something succinctly with one single answer. So there's 3 people.
Oh, we like
First
this.
person, I don't know. So there's a guy, he's a scientist,
Oh,
it's a research
You
scientist
don't
named
know
David
them. You
Forsyth.
don't know them personally.
I thought you were saying you don't know
I
who.
don't know.
No, I don't know them personally. But when you do research into invasive species in Australia, and especially how good hunting is and effectiveness of shooting and stuff, one name pops up all the time, and it's this scientist, David Forsyth. And he's got 100 and something publications. And the most recent ones are like on deer, and specifically the effectiveness of shooting deer and all that sort of stuff. And it's really interesting because in his conflict of interest declarations is that he has a New South Wales R license and is part of one of the firearm groups and is a firearm owner. So there's this guy who I want to meet, and I think could be an interesting guest potentially, who is a scientist and I guess a hunter as well, and is contributing to a lot of research around deer. So that would be one.
Nice.
Nice
Second one would be, and I talked to him and asked him about this, is so my dad's a social worker who hunts. He's got his gun license and all that, and he specifically works in domestic violence. And he's working out bush, and he's got a lot of stories about firearm ownership and who should or should not have guns versus who currently does have guns. And it's a different world to, I think, the shooting community where they say no bad guys have guns, because that's not true. And there's a lot of licensed gun owners, some who are potentially not good people, and introducing kids to hunting. I have learnt, this is the one thing we sort of disagreed on. There's definitely a wrong way to do it. And there are a lot of people out there introducing their kids to hunting the wrong way. And he's got some interesting stories about that, and I think would be interesting to talk to. And I mean, his ex-RAF and all this sort of stuff, so he knows his stuff. And the third person is Cody. Like, why you haven't had Cody Gearin on yet? It's atrocious. What's going on? Like, he makes all these memes for you. He's been recommended like 3 times. Maybe this is the 3rd time. And you just, what's going on?
Did he put you up to this?
No, I told him. I was like, hey, I'm going on. I'm going to recommend you because it's just not good that you haven't been on. It's,
I agree.
Treat him mean, keep him keen. That's why.
Oh yeah, you're just doing the whole you just tease him a little bit. You're like, yeah, we'll get you on soon. Just keep promoting us, and
We don't want him to be like, oh, you guys are flogs and stop making the memes. We like the memes.
No, it's not good. You gotta. I mean, what's going on? Do you secretly not like him? Is that what's going on?
No, we do want him on actually, and that's certainly been on our agenda. So
We need to really hit up those the guest suggestions more. I feel like we haven't really put.
he's been proposed a few times from guests.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I thought you meant
That's what
the
I'm saying.
listeners.
Like, not everyone
Sorry.
is going to bully their way onto the podcast.
Because obviously Cody's not the only one that's been suggested and we haven't had on yet.
Yeah.
So we do need to look at that. And yeah, I'm guaranteeing you're listening. So
Yeah.
There'll be memes about this within 30 seconds.
Yeah, 100%.
he's good at his memes and he's getting better. And they're mostly pointed at Josh, so that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I don't mind being portrayed as the odd one. That's fine. That's fine.
I don't think that's what he does, but you are singled out. But I don't think it's because you're the odd one.
I think one of the first things Daniel said was, Josh, you are quite unique.
That's all right. That's
Josh
all
is Josh.
No, we do love you, Cody. Thanks for your input to the podcast. It's great.
Thanks for the free promotion. Keep doing it.
Fuck, it sounds like we've got to have the guy on now.
Oh, yeah. I'm a
You
good
sound like
advocate.
that's a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
I advocate, for anyone.
I reckon he'll have some stories. to
No,
tell,
it's
that's
not a
for
bad thing. We just haven't asked him, eh?
You need to.
You'll probably say fucking no now. Stuff you guys.
We can say no to you, but can he say no to the other two? Yeah. So, Cody, if you're listening, tell Caleb no. But if it's catchy your eye, say yes, please.
The thing is, how's he going to know who asked? Because we all run the same Instagram.
No, I always sign off with my name if it's
It's
my
so
combo.
confusing. That's so confusing. I'll be talking to Couchy, and then I get a message from Send a Mate. I'm like, okay, what? Who am I talking to?
We did make a rule about signing off who it is, but then sometimes it's just nice to be incognito. Keep people guessing. Like if there's no spelling,
100%.
if there's no spelling mistakes, it's probably me.
It looks well written, good grammar. It's definitely Caleb.
Caleb, yeah.
It doesn't have frothing. That's probably me.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because my business partner also is on Instagram as well, and I'll be talking to someone, and then I'll just check the Eureka Tactical DMs, and he's just like messaged a whole bunch of people, just like sent a post or whatever, and I'm like, I was already talking to that person.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't have to message them. I don't know. It's weird.
Sounds very familiar.
It's kind of like when people posting their stories about our episodes that come out. I always double check the stories before I post someone's up because I'm paranoid of one of you guys getting there before me and chucking it up there, and I don't want to post it to us.
Oh, we've done it a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
and then I go, fuck. Then I delete it, and then, it's just it's hard with 3 people managing the same thing.
Yeah.
And with emails to companies.
Yeah, that's not starting the emails.
Well, you did mention Eureka Tactical. Daniel, how did that come into fruition, and what's that all about? Tell people out there so they can get on board.
Man, so how that came about is the short version is I wanted to supplement my income a little bit during uni, and set myself up so I could, if I didn't get a job, I mean, I was working during uni the whole time.
Because the gigolo thing didn't work out.
Yeah. Maybe.
He's got a few texts tonight. So that's more texts than you.
Former clients.
Wait, was your other first job that you couldn't talk about, was that OnlyFans?
That didn't exist back then.
No, it didn't exist.
You're the founder.
Come on. So I was working, and I really dislike working for other people. It's stupid. It sucks.
True.
The steady income's nice. I like that part. But, management, especially like a large corporation, that's so stupid. Being like, can I please request this day off? And they can be like, no. It's like, well, actually, I wasn't actually asking you. But anyway, and, things like that. So I wanted a bit more income during uni, and I wanted to at least set myself up. So if I leave uni and don't get a job, or I just am sick of, working for other people, it's something I can build on, right? And I've got all this experience in the shooting and hunting community. So, after I left the gun shop, I worked as a Queensland firearm instructor for like 5 or 6 years. I've had a lot of interactions with the hunting community and shooting community. And I'm like, look, I can incorporate what I already know with what I'm learning and have a business that puts good messages out there. And then at least with the ABN, maybe I can build on it and do some like pest control under the ABN. And I've got a lot of plans for it.
Yep.
But yeah, it started as just wanting more income and trying to build a platform to use what I've learned during the degree to spread good messages about hunting to the hunting community.
Yep.
In ways that the hunting community could probably accept.
Yep. Certainly with the apparel, like there's definitely messages out there to certainly get people asking the question. Like you're wearing a shirt at the moment which says hunting equals conservation, which if you wear that down the street, then that's probably going to get someone stop you and ask what that's about. So people should definitely check out what you have available because there's some pretty cool messages on there and certainly some thought-provoking stuff. Couchy hasn't been good enough to wear one of your T-shirts tonight, but...
Yeah, now I feel bad.
You raise
And you should feel bad.
You raise a good point. Obviously, you're repping your own merch while you're at uni, and it's pretty obvious merch. How and did you get any backlash from your colleagues or uni friends and things like that?
It's a fantastic question. I'll tell you why. Because going into uni, right? So the common thought in, I guess, shooting circles, hunting circles, which leads to, sort of political circles, is that universities and cities are just inner city, lewd-haired, lefties, anti-gun, anti-everything. I got only support.
Really?
I did not meet anyone who was against hunting or against guns. I had so many people want me to take them hunting, want me to take them shooting. And these are people who live around the city, who live in Brisbane or maybe the outer suburbs, who have not been exposed to that. And I was like, shooting sounds really cool. Like, I want to go shooting. Like, hunting, that's cool. That's really cool. I want to go hunting. I didn't meet anyone who has been against it. One of my friends, who like I've made like 3 good friends through uni. One, he's vegan and he is for the hunting of invasive species, like people hunting invasive species, not like tropicals or anything. He's vegan and is like, yeah, like, look, it's good that hunters are going out and killing these animals. I met someone who she goes spearfishing. Most people I met were cool. Like,
Did you find those people were sort of straight away they were open to going out shooting with you, or was it after the conversation with you, you sort of encouraged?
I mean, I am fairly good looking, so that could be part of it.
So beyond the looks.
So Zach thinks it's just a Queensland thing because everyone in Queensland at least has a cousin or uncle who shoots rabbits. But I don't know. I didn't go around and be like, hey, I go shooting or anything. It's just like you meet someone, you have conversations. Hey, what do you do? Yeah, like I go shooting. That's my recreation. Hunting's my recreation. And they're like, oh, that's cool. That's really cool. I didn't go out of my way to find people who had more of a country background. I had friends who, were those blue hair dyed lefties who just like guns. Because, gun ownership is not inherent left or right. It's not conservative or progressive. Gun ownership just is. And it's been co-opted by right-wing and left-wing politics, but it's not inherently left or right. So people just think it's cool, and it is. So yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was any sort of confirmation bias or anything, because it was like me. It was just, I think, just if you're nice and dress well, then people aren't going to try and fight you.
I think that's an important point: is being articulate and sort of educating yourself and being armed with all the right facts when someone challenges you on something. And it is a cool thing as a hunter to be able to change someone's perspective. And I'm quite surprised that, being in your field of biology, that for you to say that you didn't have any negative experiences.
Yeah. So why does that surprise you?
Because it surprised me because of the stereotype that exists, or
my own auntie,
the stigma around people who are pro environment or pro conservation. And I know myself that's not always the case, but in general, that's sort of, people in your field would come across as more sort of greenies, for example, rather than pro hunting.
So, but as we discussed in the first half hour, 45 minutes of this podcast, the things we hunt in Australia are damaging the environment. So the people who like the environment like these animals being taken out of it, and, with some critical thinking, they understand that it's got to be people who do it. Mm-hmm. And then you present yourself as someone who's nice and not, super bogan or whatever, or anything like that. And they're like, oh, it's just like you're doing it. Like, it doesn't matter. And I had my invasion ecology professor, his whole field is to do with invasives. And his thought was like, well, your community just makes my job easier. Like,
yeah, I suppose you're all sort of affecting and benefiting the same thing. So that makes a lot of sense.
I think the catalyst for changing anyone's perspective is just educating them on the method of what it actually is to do what you do. So most people you talk to about hunting who have no idea and have only heard stuff in the media think you're a redneck who just goes out there and blasts away everything that moves.
Because that's the narrative.
Because that's the narrative that gets presented. But when you actually have that conversation one-on-one with someone in a long format, and they ask you questions back and forth, and you educate them on what you actually do and the time you put into, practicing what you do and making sure you take an ethical shot and that you're taking all the meat and this, that, and the other, and then that changes their perspective because you're sort of going into the method more rather than just, I'm a hunter, like at a surface level understanding. So
you're coming at it that some people's minds need to be changed, and that just may not be the case at all. Like I said, I've met people who, without much conversation, within 5 minutes of me being like, I go hunting or whatever, their immediate reaction was, that's cool. Like I said, these are, most people go to uni at 18. I went in my mid-20s. So these are, 18-year-olds, so the demographic most likely to vote left-wing, to vote Labour or Greens. And their immediate reaction is like, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. So, you come at it as if someone's mind needs to be changed. That just may not be the case. It just may be that they just haven't really thought about it too much, or and then their first interaction is oh, that's neat. And I've had that a lot. I had that just last week with someone who you'd think is super progressive, and they were just like, yeah, they think like wages should go up and housing should be affordable, and trans is valid or whatever. And then they're also like, guns are super cool and hunting's super cool. And this is like the most inner city lefty person you could ever imagine. And yeah, so it's just, I think
it's interesting.
Don't come at it as if that some person is going to be anti or not. They might just have not thought about it before.
It is interesting. I wonder if there's been somewhat of a shift and maybe why that is. Sort of. I mean, we are slightly different vintage, Daniel. So, I mean, in my uni days, for example, if I was to go through and say to most people that I'm a hunter and shooter, amongst my mates, cool, and some people, yeah, that's different. Oh, what's that about? But to just say if I had one of those T-shirts on and I walked through the uni, there would be people that would actively come up to me and say, what's that about? Oh, you're a killer, you're a murderer, you're this, that, and the other. So whether that's a cultural thing and we're in different states, or whether that's just over time things have changed, or maybe there's been a swing around to the other direction, it's quite interesting because I definitely didn't have that experience.
Can I add in another option?
13, 14, 15 years ago.
That's a possible option.
It is.
Are you saying your effervescent personality and your dashing good looks have just overcome any sort of bias?
I think
we can't rule it out.
We can't, because you do come across as a sex pest, before you even open your mouth. So people will judge you, man.
Don't make us put this to a vote. There's a fucking good-looking rooster in this room. Fuck me.
I actually think there has been a change, man, and part of that's from social media, I think, and the whole culture of organic meat, organic free-range meat has certainly changed people's mindset on this. Because I'm partially with Caleb. 10 years ago, if you were to be loud and proud about it in South Australia, you would have been shut down. Like, people would have been yelling at you and carrying on, and it just wasn't really spoken about. So you hit it, and then that mind change, our opinions and things shifted, and we started to be a bit more vocal. And then plus all the other social media that's targeted around hunting and the benefits of eating meat. I do think there's certainly a change in society these days.
Well, there's I guess it sort of depends on where you're from as well, because
Definitely.
Queensland and South Australia, and I was born and grew up in country Victoria, and hunting was just a everyday thing there.
Yeah.
Whether it's mainly pest control where I grew up, everyone knew someone that had a firearm or hunted or shot, and it was part of the school curriculum as well. So I just, I guess it's what you're exposed to, and obviously the country sort of is exposed to that a lot more. But hopefully there is a shift, and it's sort of going a positive way.
Hopefully. We're glad you had that experience.
And it's something I'm going to explore more. Because like I said, with one particular person I met a couple of weeks ago at a first aid course, this chick, bright neon pink hair, which you'd think like that's not going to be congruent with our lifestyle or whatever, like hipster tats, the whole lot. And I'm talking to her, and she's a sex worker, which is typically a very progressive field of people who you would think are anti-gun and anti-hunting and all that. And so I brought it up because she does a lot of advocacy for her community, and I brought up that I do a lot for mine, and we started talking about the parallels between her work and Firearm Owners United work and all that. And a lot of the messaging is the same thing, so much of the same thing, just of people complaining, not wanting to change things, about if you ban things, it just goes underground. That's a massive saying in the gun community. Same thing with her work and all that. And she was like, that's super cool. Can you take me to the gun range? Can we end up going hunting and that sort of stuff? And that's super cool, because this is just, from first appearance, you'd think is anti and really not. And she was saying look, most people in this community either haven't thought about it or would maybe be pro because they feel like they're in danger all the time, right? And so I think just most people potentially aren't anti-gun if they've really thought about it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're actually going to be doing like an article series and stuff of introducing someone from the very progressive walk of life into hunting and shooting. So that'll be very interesting. But like, you just got to talk to people. There's no other way about it.
Yeah, I mean, straight away you had something in common. You both meat hunters, so that's Sorry, that's a joke.
I knew
it's
that
a joke that had to be made. It was fucking burning.
That was a cracker.
It was burning.
I was waiting for
It's
it.
burning. Interesting. It was a sex worker, Daniel. Was it a former colleague?
Yeah, it was. Was a client or
Actually, kind of. So we'd been talking about my security history of where I was working when I was working security, and she was actually working at a location where I was doing security work for quite a while. Not as what she does now as a office worker. So actually, yeah, kind of. We had actually interacted beforehand before this date. So
Interesting.
There you go.
Funny how things. It's a small world.
It is.
It is. I don't know what it's like in Brisbane, but bloody hell, in Adelaide, just like there's not 6 degrees of separation; it's 1 degree.
Well,
and in Tasmania, your parents are related.
My dad's best friend for 20 years. That he had as a client first for his business, and then he started working for once he sold his business because he was sick of people. His best friend turned out to be his sister.
Oh,
biological sister, because he's adopted, and he's had this person known for 20 years. And one day, her coworker was like, "Hey, like you guys like act very similar and stuff." And he was like, "Oh, yeah." And they started talking about adoption, and he said where he was adopted from, and she was like, "Hey, yeah, like my dad had a kid that was adopted from there," and they end up getting DNA tested, and yeah, they're
What?
wow,
that's
sister.
crazy.
Yeah. It's even crazy that a few years beforehand, my dad tried to set me up with her daughter. So that's not good.
I thought you were going to say they were dating. Oh, this doesn't sound
So
good.
it was a close call.
Bloody hell. Was your daughter hot? Sorry.
Well, the fact is, he tried to set him up.
I mean, I felt that was a weird situation to begin with. Just like, that's kind of strange.
Yeah, no, it was.
But so yeah, very small world.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, bloody hell.
That's a cool story.
That is a very cool story.
All right, Tom, I got to piss.
Josh needs a piss.
Weak.
That's a cracker, man. Fucking hell.
Just us. So should we start talking about Josh or?
We do when he's here anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the
Yeah, but it's more fun to talk about him behind his back and then say those things to his front.
Yeah.
Like really just like workshop what we're going to say and just make sure it's a cracker. Okay, yeah.
Do you accept fucking
Bitcoin.
No, the fucking pay later stuff.
Oh, ZipPay.
ZipPay. Do you accept ZipPay?
No. One of those organizations shut down today.
Which one?
One of the pay now. Oh, I don't know. There was a news thing on it.
I don't fucking
had a
watch
weird
the
name.
news.
It wasn't ZipPay or Afterpay. It was like Pay Later or something. Went into administration like 12 hours ago.
If you were part of them, do they just wipe your debt, or do they still chase it
That's
up?
a good question. That's interesting. Like you'd think so. I mean, if it goes into administration, it's still running, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if someone buys it, then they would buy your debt,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
They would.
Fuck. So you still owe shit. I was hoping ZipPay would go under.
Just
Oh,
the
God.
key lesson here is don't spend money you don't have.
There is something.
Unless it's on Eureka Tactical, then you should.
There is something that we could do. We'll talk about it later, but maybe purchasing some merch to give away at the ADA. So from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, donations and things. Our ADA is pretty strong here in Southeast. It's 500 members now.
Okay.
So it's a pretty good little bit of an advertisement.
Well, right now, let's see what the chopper culls do. If they wipe it out like they want to, then it'll be null and void.
Yeah.
There's no deer, there's no...
Yeah, there's no
Well,
ADA.
the southeast branch
Just
is
don't let them
under
do
threat.
it.
Yeah.
Let's go protest. Let's go protest. Let's go train ourselves to trees.
No, let's go dress up as deer and run around.
So one of you has to sacrifice yourself
They were
to
telling...
prove that these are bad things to do.
Exactly. They were telling the properties that obviously sell trophy hunting. They were saying that if their deer aren't tagged, they will be shot on their property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach
And
was sending me that.
How do you tag wild deer?
Well,
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense because I guess their idea is like they will kill all the deer which aren't stock,
Yeah.
Agricultural stock, which,
But if it's in your fence line,
I mean,
isn't
yeah,
it?
but I don't know. With the stuff that I was sent, I was like, that doesn't look good.
No.
But I mean, your legislation, your biosecurity acts are way different to here. The running of like a trophy hunting system in Queensland borders on illegal, just because of the way people run it under the Biosecurity Act. So it's kind of, I mean, they still do it. It's not really enforced that much. So, but I mean, it's kind of hard to like justify something which like they might be doing something that's not legal anyway, but it's for a good cause in terms of hunting because hunting's cool.
It's a weird one.
It is.
It's hard. There's a bit of a security issue actually with this chopper culls. So PERSA put out pretty much notifications and then requests to shoot on private land as well, like do a flyby over private land and shoot for feral deer. And there is a property that we've hunted on here in the southeast, and there's a couple adjacent properties and things that have said no to PERSA, and the chopper's gone over anyway and shot deer on the property. And like what the place that Couchy's talking about before is Water Valley. I'm sure you've heard of it. Brinkworth's property. It's a high fenced area, and basically his father released a whole bunch of deer, different species there. Then I think the 80s, I'm pretty sure it was the 80s. And now PERSA's turned around and said, oh, you need to ear tag all your deer because they're in a high fence. And he's like, well, they're wild. We're just high fence out. It's a working cattle station as well. But they're like, yeah, you need to ear tag them and put them under your pick number. And he's like, well, they're wild deer. And PERSA's turned around and said, no, well, if you don't do it, we'll bring the chopper in. And the argument is, well, I don't give them permission to. And PERSA then pushes back however they need to or want to, which is an issue.
Yeah.
It's an issue.
Well,
I've had a mate out hunting on the property that had said no to this fly zone, and the choppers come through and shot.
sounds like a whole bunch of people need some really good lawyers, really, to try and stop this. I mean, that would be something there's got to be a pathway, right, in legislation that says, like, if you deny someone, access to the airspace over your land, and that's denied, right? I mean, that you'd think something would be in CASA about it.
I'm guessing the property owners probably couldn't do much about flying over, but the fact they're shooting into the property, that's where they would have grounds to, I think.
Fucking oath.
Yeah,
Well, you can't shoot over properties if you're if you're. So probably, yeah. But I mean, that would be something. I mean, the government is pretty strong. It'd have to be something you go to, whatever your equivalent of QCAT is, or the tribunals, to try and get it halted, maybe, or get some reparations or something, because it's not good.
Yeah, it's not. It's not at all, and it's not safe. And I find that it costs a lot of, from talking to people that are in the industry, it costs a lot of money. I mean, the pilot and the fuel was anywhere up to $14,000 for a couple of days shooting alone, and then
they'll charge per brackets of deer shot as well. But then the only evidence they have of the deer shot is casings.
Yeah, that's literally how they count their deer.
They wouldn't you could just be letting rounds fly, and it's just money to them.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, that would be definitely something that's way beyond, I think, any of us could probably fight. And it'd have to be like the property owners getting some sort of lawyers or barristers or whatever to try and get like an injunction or something to stop it, because I mean that's. Like, how do you stop that when you've already told them no and they do it anyway?
Yeah.
Well, here's one for you, just quickly thinking about this, right? In South Australia, part of this bow ban that we had, was because there was a roo found with an arrow in it, and amongst other things. But yet, how many deer are not fatally wounded with a fucking 308 round in them from these chopper culls? And I know for a fact, and I've seen deer shot months later with bullet holes in them.
Wow.
All the angles of the entry wound look like they're coming from the sky, not from, parallel to the ground. So you sort of sit there and go, okay, so where's the justification for humanity, for their unethical side for these deer? Oh, yeah, I don't know.
There is a document or helicopter shooters, a standard of ethics that all shooters have to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, how do you prove that they actually did follow it and that they are as effective as they claim to be?
Yeah.
Is pretty tough. So,
well, that's the other thing. Fudging numbers. It's not just shell casings. I mean, we're not there. We don't count the casings, so we don't know. But we've definitely heard rumours of them saying they've shot 300 deer, and it hasn't been 300 deer. In one small area.
And then you generally hear of hunters going out the weekend after or whatever. And if they shot 300 deer, there would be visible evidence of that.
That too, yeah.
I mean, would there though? Like a deer, like what? Let's say 2 square meters, right? Maybe 3. I mean, how many square meters is the forest?
Yeah, this is sort of more, it's not really foresty though. It's sort of a bit of a patchy sort of scrubland and then grassland, I guess. So it's not all just dense forest.
It does depend.
I forgot South Australia was also
it's a desert.
There is one particular area that gets aerial culled quite a lot, and it's basically Salt Creek, and it's between the dunes and the highway, which would be no more than a kilometre wide in parts and as narrow as fucking 150 metres, and it has just all your beachy sort of shrubs and things, not real high. There's a lot of open patches between, a lot of salt bush, a lot of this and that. And I have no idea where I was going with
Jesus.
Being able to see the deer that are chopper culled.
Yeah. And it's a high traffic area for
not just hunters, but tourists and recreational, full drive, everything.
Well, one lucky thing is that they are being held more accountable because as technology evolves and the counting method evolves, using thermals to provide proof that they have killed an animal, well, all that data's got to go somewhere, and that's becoming more and more accessible. So, I think over the next few years that they will have to be super accurate in their reports because there's going to be evidence to prove otherwise if they're not.
Or at least like their report is the video content that they have to film while shooting to provide proof. Yeah. Just up front.
That'd cause a lot of dramas as well if they're not putting ethical shots on. And
well, that's a light you sort of need to shine on them, don't you?
Yeah, it is.
Because there's no way they could ethically kill like consistently out of a chopper all the time. Like,
is it ethical to kill an animal?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I think it is.
Yes, it is.
But I mean, if you're going to talk about like ethics and stuff, I mean, there's people who say it's not ethical to kill an animal in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
but they'll eat avocado and fucking spinaches, and they'll kill more
spinaches,
more animals,
plural,
than what hunting does.
So now that we're back on deer, I'm gonna come back to something that I said at the start, and that I've got a problem with Josh. So box on. No.
There we go.
You're talking about you were watching a doe.
Thank you. This is interesting. I'm keen.
Now,
I'm gonna sit back.
We had a conversation at the start of the podcast about the damage that deer do, right? And that you said you didn't shoot it for conservation.
Plural.
What does that mean for you?
Well, so conservation.
When you use that word.
Yeah, so for me is to have the different types of species around for my future son and my future's sons or daughters or whoever. I'm going to have a son, so that's why I said son, not daughter, personally. but that's what it looked like for me. So it was like, so it's based on two things essentially. It was that I wanted the species to be there when I pass away for the next generation, and two, the amount of deer in this particular area. I mean, it was a large sort of area, and yeah, okay, I'm sure there was deer that we didn't see. I'm sure there's, you know, deer moving migratory through it, and this and that. But the deer that we saw, there was personally, I only saw five or six. So I was like, okay, cool. That's enough. In this area, in my mindset, that was enough that, you know, to not want to take away from it, and enough to leave it to keep reproducing. So the next time I can go there as well, there's going to be deer there.
Okay.
And I had been there before, hunted this area before, and I had seen so there was, when I shot a doe there last time I was there was actually two groups of deer. One deer we didn't see because it was tucked. One group was tucked around a spur line.
Jesus Christ. This is the fucking longest fucking winded answer ever.
Shut the fuck up.
Environmental
I mean, we all
environmental
listen to the
conversation.
podcast.
No, it's getting into somewhere.
Environmental conservation versus conservation of the species. You want to be there for future generations. That's the.
No,
that's
Take my line.
I think you remind me of a politician.
See, I don't. See, this is the other thing.
I'm falling asleep over here, mate.
Well, cool. You can fall asleep. But so there was two groups of deer, and these groups would have been, you know, 30, 40 strong. And so, okay, I'd understand in that sort of, you know, those sort of numbers, I'd be like, yeah, okay, take one and wouldn't think twice. Now, as it for the vegetation and things like this, I don't know what I'm looking for and this and that, but the land itself looked healthy, flourishing, and fine, and six deer aren't going to damage that entire corridor that we were in.
Do you know that for sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because pretty sure.
Well,
I
the
don't know it. I don't know it for certain, man. But in my mind, that was the justification, and that's a justification that's very hard to break in my mind because I have my own agenda, and that's being truthfully honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So the point I wanted to make before so rudely predicted is that, you know, the word conservation doesn't necessarily imply for the environment, right? Conservation itself is just keeping something. And I think a lot of hunters, when they say the word conservation in defense of why they hunt, right? It's like, I'm hunting for conservation purposes because I've heard that word before, like on Meat Eater, listen to Steve Renetta and stuff, when he talks about how, like, in the US, you pay to hunt an animal that then helps keep the population stable, and then that money goes into revegetation efforts and all that, and all that. And so then hunters here are like, well, you know, hunting is conservation for the environment, or they say hunt for conservation and all that. But then you ask, it's like, well, you know, you want to keep some. It's like, so it's trying to conserve the hunting as opposed to the environment. And I think it's just really interesting, the use of language when hunters use that word, because it's like, hang on, are you saying that you're trying to conserve these deer and then the act of recreational hunting in Australia, or trying to conserve the environment? Because if you're like, I didn't shoot that deer for environmental conservation, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like from an objective point of view, versus it's like, well, yeah, I'm trying to conserve this species being here. I think it's really interesting just how that gets used, and I think the community needs to kind of start using the full term, conservation of the environment, trying to conserve deer. And I think that open honesty would then be appreciated by those who may be more for eradication, because then at least it's all your cards are on the table. And I think that's really interesting, just like the use of language.
See, that's why I asked before numbers right at the start. I was like, give us a number or a percentage in a certain area, which I think for your argument on conservation on the land and things like this, I think that's important for hunters to know.
Well, it provides visibility. So, do I go hard?
It does.
Or do I just back off a bit?
It does, because
from a pure objective point of view, right, a single deer is damaging to the environment, to the Australian environment, which is not good, because then if you go to that argument, then we might go back to the number that's hunters want that you're arguing for may not exist. So an acceptance that damage has to be done to the environment to keep your sport, to keep your hobby, to keep your recreational activities has to be done. And, without that, then you're not being totally honest.
Mm-hmm.
I like hunting. It's super fun. I accept that to keep hunting, some damage to the environment has to be done. It's like a sacrifice. So I try and make up for it in other ways, by spending 3.5 years and going into debt from university and trying to, to that. You could do like other things, but, the full conversation, I think, would be really important to the hunting. If hunting communities was like, yes, to keep this around, we have to damage the environment, and that's unfortunate. But that's like your personal beliefs. That's your personal morals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important. And it comes to a question I'm going to ask. All of you were laughing before, but I've got something for all of you. It's not this one, but do we, as I guess European descended Australians, right, have an inherent right to hunt deer in Australia? So I'm not saying do we have a right to hunt, just do we have an inherent right to hunt deer in Australia? And it doesn't have an answer.
I want to say yes, but
yes
I don't know
and
how
no.
to back it up.
It's yes and no, because they're not native, so you're doing damage. But you're like, yes, because we're, European descent, and that's part of our heritage. If you want to go down a cultural path, which is one thing that I believe that we've sort of lost a little bit in our culture.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's a really good answer. Agree with that.
So it is both yes and no, personally.
I'm trying to read into the subtext of this question.
Where he's leading you
Oh
to.
no, this is probably the first question I've asked. I wasn't leading, that I wasn't trying to, it's just thought provoking, something to think about, right? I think deer hunting's great. It's cool that we have access to it, but I think it's just something that if you're going to be in the space, you need to, ask yourself and really consider. Is especially, if you start reading the research and start the path of accepting like they do damage, and they're keeping deer hunting, damage to the environment. Do we have an inherent right to have deer hunting here?
Well, this can be offset if they had a licensing to hunt public land. We can, as you said, like the states do, and we learn a lot from the states, and we're typically 10 years behind the states. But simply, impose that licensing, that money then goes into the conservation efforts on whatever's being destroyed in that area from those deer into a uninhabited area of deer. There you go. And so you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting to keep your deer and provide a revenue and jobs, which is good for the economy.
Well, you see them, like the difference between, speaking of jobs, SA has no, you have to pay to go full driving. You can't go shooting on public land. And there's all these restrictions on the use of our public land, where Victoria is quite the opposite.
Mm.
And yet you see the money that gets injected into that, into their public land and all that. And you see when you go, for example, when I go to like the Grampians or just elsewhere, you the parks and all that, they're well maintained, the tracks are done.
Infrastructure's
Infrastructure's
there.
there. Yeah, there's
fucking all that shit.
There's all, and the rangers, there's multiple, it's jobs for rangers, where here there's stuff all.
Mm.
So I feel like that's where SA's gone wrong, is limiting access and opportunity.
States.
Yeah, well, I guess most states. I'm not really
New
versed in New
South
South
Wales,
Wales, Queensland, and
New South Wales not too bad. Vic's obviously the leading example. I don't know what it's like in Queensland personally. NT is
not fantastic.
Say again.
Not fantastic.
Well, so we keep spreading, other diagrams of what the country's done. NT's not too bad. I mean, you've got to pay for a public land license, but they just don't put the money back into that public land. And we stated WA just needs to be cut off from the mainland before.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we can use the money of a national, conservation fund to just cut WA off.
I don't think WA needs to go. I think you just need to chop out Perth.
No,
That's
Josh,
where we can put our trench.
Oh fuck! You stole my thunder.
That's
I was
where
going to
we
say
can put our
Yes,
canal.
what's this trench?
your
As a
canal.
scientist, I need to know. You guys have written.
You haven't heard about the canal?
Maybe.
Go on.
Oh god!
This is another half hour.
Don't start him
Are
down.
are we turning Australia into another island?
Two islands, really.
No, I've
Yes.
read some things and heard some things
You know what's
about
been tried?
terraforming. To some degree of success and some degree of detriment. And for a large part, the middle of Australia is uninhabitable, mainly because we don't have water. And, the soil types are a little different and things like that. But one thing that I thought about helping that, and especially the influx of fresh water that we get from the north, was simply building a canal down to the south to bring that water in. And create terraform a bit of land. Look, I mean, these guys laugh. I'm not the first person to propose this either. Like, it's on the internet.
It's been tried.
And people have proposed it to do it in Australia or something similar in Australia. But I think it might be a good idea. I mean, as soon as you create that green belt, you're creating habitable land, you're creating more jobs, more area to live, which we're not sort of there yet in a population size to be like, fuck, we're running out of room. But we'll get there eventually, I have no doubt. And it might obviously terraform and change some climate in the centre and create a bit more farming land and produce a bit more. I don't know. I mean, Caleb's in hysterics with this.
But so
Well, how no?
well,
how
okay,
no?
So you want to green Australia, right? And like you said, you want to change the soil types and all that. That would mean maybe losing the thorny devil. That's the cool lizard. Why do you want to kill the thorny devil?
He can live in WA.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we've translated that over. Look, we can do this. It's not going to work, but nothing the government does works anyway. So if you build a big trench, fill it with seawater, you let it build up below sea level, fill it in, that would create at least a brackish region, which then open up the possibility for fresh water to allow a new forest region to come in and arable land.
Your idea is the rainy season in the Northern Territory or the northern
the
part of
flood
Australia,
waters.
or the flood water.
So
Build a big thing
Repurpose
down.
that to come flow south.
you could, but in my mind, there's two mind frames because you need water all year round to do something of this magnitude almost. So
Goalposts.
yes,
Moved.
having some
pitching this
flow.
meme.
No, it was never moved. This is
Thank you,
I've
Katie.
discussed this before. Having some flow of seawater is probably a major factor in it, but predominantly using a lot of the fresh water. And you're going to have to mix, and you can control it by your locks and things. That's fine. That's no dramas. We do it anyway with rivers that are established here.
Yeah.
So that's not a hard concept to get around. And in my mind, if you're introducing water into an arid climate, you're also going to have some, I'm going to say this very loosely, control over your precipitation and all of that. It's going to introduce a little bit more rain and things like this. Soil type, we'll have to do something there, but I'm sure that can be done over time. I mean,
Do you know your soils?
Not
I mean,
that
do you know
great.
much about
no.
soil?
Not that great, no. But
Because it's very hard to change a soil type, right? There's 15 different soil types, and they're vastly different. Well, they can be vastly different from each other based on the salinity, the clay content, and all that. And you changing that, it's going to be that's a big issue for you. Just letting you know.
it is.
You'll need someone in earth moving, I think.
Having said that, we do have the ability to farm sandy soil now. We didn't in the 70s and 80s and things. We didn't have the machinery that would really do it and the technology that would really do it, but now we do. And then obviously if you're planting those crops, what you're taking out, they're putting back in a certain degree. So you're going to change that soil type over a long period of time. In my mind, it will happen. And as I said, this is not a quick fix. This is a very long-term fix, which we're not good at seeing any longevity in Australian politics.
Daniel is twitching.
I don't know. That's my mind.
Look, it's something we can workshop. But you've got a few problems. So first, the salinity in the soil, right? Especially with a massive influx of salt water. Look, I'm no metal worker, but I hear salt water and metal potentially not fantastic. That's maybe not great. And then you've also got issues with the red center is a red center because of the iron content, or rather oxidized iron in the soil. So you get that on your vehicles as well, and that's even more rust. So I guess your earth movers are going to have to be a little bit more than minimum wage and keep up with the maintenance.
I never said this is going to be a cheap exercise, but it could be done.
It'll financially ruin our country, but Josh will get his canal.
Fully convinced.
This is what ruins a country and sends us into a massive depression.
Is it? If you got your canal, would you be the first one to sail across it with a soggy Dorito?
If it was large enough, it could also be used as a shipping lane. Now, we're talking about 2,000.
Like from where?
When I talk about shipping, I'm not talking about freighters. I'm
just talking about canoes.
Boats that can hold some form of goods and sail it down. You're cutting down some of the
dredging, which then undoes all of the benefits that you're proposing of all this new plant life.
It definitely turns commercial real quick.
How does sailing down?
Are you the CEO of this? What's the scope?
How does sailing down a boat undo the plant life?
Well, you're talking about stuff that can freight.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You have to dredge. If you're talking about stuff you can freight so you can make money, you have to dredge the canal, and then you have to ensure that no erosion comes into it. You don't collapse your banks, right? And then also you want farmland nearby, which causes runoff. Now, I don't know if you've been to Brisbane before, but the river is not pretty. Neither is the Yarra River because of farmland runoff. So you want boats and farmland next to a river. That might not be fantastic, but look, we can try. Nothing else to do.
Look, it's as I said, it's a very out there thought and things, and I'm not the first to propose it. And it could be done. I have no doubt. It'd take maybe a very long time and a lot of money, but I have no doubt we could do it. Whether that kills some of our native flora and fauna, I don't know. I'm sure we can work out ways to get around that.
Wait, so we're not doing this for conservation anymore. We're back onto that.
You're running the Ayers Rock. You're screw it. We're going through it.
Drill straight through Ayers Rock. Don't go around.
Clearly, you go
not
around.
My job.
Oh, crikey!
Good. So back on reality, right? I like this idea, and like I said, we can workshop it. We can get the crayons out and a poster, and we can do all that. But let's say that we're going to philosophy a little bit. The idea of deer having the minimum amount of numbers, the population, the level where they don't do much damage. Let's say it's higher than the minimum viable population, so we can keep some. What if that number is still low, that maybe Australia-wide is the hog deer ballot? What if it's a number where you aren't guaranteed to be able to hunt during the rut? How would you feel about that?
Yeah, it would suck.
It would suck.
But it's better than no deer.
It is.
Oh, it's definitely better than no deer.
Yeah, if you had the choice of eradication or managing to a number, then you definitely take managing.
I mean, like if you're gonna talk about something, if you're gonna propose something, then you have to think about, okay, what if this actually happens?
Yeah.
What are the effects? Maybe the effect is you don't get to actually hunt. Maybe it's 10% of the population actually gets to hunt.
Yeah, you might
because
not
it's
get another
like a
chance
ballot
again.
system.
Mm.
How would you feel? How do you think the hunting community would react to that?
It would suck because then it would feel like almost an elitist type thing. Whereas the beauty about hunting is it's accessible for anyone who wants to, get involved, basically, like all genders, all ages, it's available at the moment. So it's a system like that, or that number being maintained it's just going to make it available for the select few, which that's going to suck 100%.
I mean, you're talking about, your idea is this number. Well, the effect of this number might be that. And I think it's something to think about. I think most people would be pretty unhappy about it.
But Cashy's got a point. It's better than no deer. If there's no deer, you can't hunt deer, period. You can't be in that club, or you have a chance to be in that club to hunt deer.
I'd say there's a fair bit of out of sight, out of mind in terms of most hunters not seeing the damage firsthand or being aware of it. Like, sure, when you're out in the bush, you see a rub tree or you see where, a deer's been grazing or feeding on a bush or whatever. But in terms of the actual taking note of the damage to the environment, I dare say we probably don't really see the impact to its full extent, really, or acknowledge it. I would concede that point as a hunter.
And we don't perceive, I definitely don't perceive like the flora being so, I guess, fragile in a way where excessive amounts of just deer could sort of tip the scale to degrade over time and just destroy the
So this is one of the reasons why you like hunting the southeast. I mean, it's farming land with pockets of scrub, but those pockets of scrub you can actually walk through. So you have thought about it, just whether it's consciously or not. You have thought about it because you're suddenly moving through, I guess, tightly woven trees, but you can still move through it. You do that in Victoria.
Yeah, if we can just eradicate the ferns in the high country, then I'm happy with that. Fuck them.
Ferns are beautiful, though.
They're great,
Ferns are
but
cool.
then you can't see shit.
That's going into the fucking
that's
canal
problem, I
bin.
think.
Hey?
Just get better.
Yeah.
What do you want every hunt to be handed to you? Oh,
Fucking the
I think
deer
I
were
can
handed to
challenge.
Josh and still didn't get any.
I fucking worked hard when you packed it in to go back to the car, thank you.
I think
I think it's just something to think about,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right,
this might be a reality, and if you're gonna talk about it on podcasts and stuff, then it's like, well, okay, what happens after? What happens if you're right?
I've got a question. You're in my shoes, and you've seen those doe, those couple of does and the fawn. What are you doing?
Probably taking off those shoes. They'll be really tight.
Taking off the what?
Shoes would be really tight.
Pretty small shoes to fill.
Small feet.
I don't get it.
Look,
You have a small dick.
I don't get it. And look, I understand if you have
Let him finish.
let him
Let him
answer.
finish. Let him finish. Let him answer.
He just made one comment.
Just like I said, all of you guys because you made a good point. Okay, if you shoot this, you're like 2 days into the hunt at that point, and you had booked out like a week or something.
Yeah.
And it's like it kind of sucks if you're gonna that's it, that's your shot kind of deal. You don't know what's coming up next, and your personal ethics. I think from the sounds of it, you shoot a trip or such. And it sounds like it was at the bottom of a hill.
Pretty much.
Look, I live at sea level. There are no mountains around here. So if something's at the bottom of a hill, it's whatever. But if it was on a property that I was on, and I hadn't seen anything else, I would shoot it because I try and take the meat. If we're in a position, if in this hypothetical where I could get the meat, then yeah. And if I couldn't, I would still try and do something to help, make sure there's no wild dog increases or anything, right? Because it's fine if you leave it. And I wasn't trying to get up here for that. I just want you to think when you say you didn't kill something for conservation. What does that mean?
Yeah, conservation of that species.
of that species. Yeah, and that's the answer we got to.
You can answer that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it hadn't been proposed
but
in that
A
question.
lot of people say conservation when justifying their hunting, especially because they feel like they're on the defense and stuff. It's like, hey, look, hunting is good for the environment, and it's just like, but you're in a position where you didn't kill something, and saying it's good for the environment. It's like, oh, it's actually good for something else.
There's an important distinction to be made, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, just thought provoking.
Makes sense.
Now, I can see you guys are getting very tired, but I have something for all of you. You talk about
We are half
unity,
an hour ahead,
right?
bro.
I'm good.
I work for the man.
You're good? Well, that's, again, skill issue. So you talk about like unity and stuff, and something that I see. So when people say there's not unity in this community, a lot of the examples are like between the clubs, like the pistol club not caring about the shotgun club not caring about rifles and stuff. I haven't gone to a club for a long time. I don't know if that still exists. But I think it exists in the hunting community. And I think it exists when people who hunt deer on foot say that pig hunters aren't hunters, they're just shooters, that, someone is a shooter. And I think that might be damaging to the, and I want to hear your thoughts as well. I think that might be damaging to the environment, to the community, because there are people who consider themselves hunters who other hunters would consider just shooters. And they might be listening and being like, like, I consider myself a hunter. I'm part of the hunting community. I want to defend the hunting community. But these other people who have a voice, who have a platform, are saying, I'm not a hunter. I'm just a shooter. How do you feel about, do you see that as maybe damaging to the community?
Yeah, 100%.
And part of the division that might be occurring?
I think it's all fair game if it's just a bit of banter between groups, just like, I guess, brothers. But at the end of the day, we all sort of enjoy the same, maybe not the same method to hunting or shooting, but we all enjoy the use of firearms outside. So I guess we all sort of had the same sort of principles in a way. And if we back up each other, then we're sort of united in that way against, just say, if they try and take duck hunting, which I guess they're definitely trying to. And unless someone hunts in different sort of methods, they're sort of almost against it or not willing to sort of stick their neck out for them.
I see what you mean about the unity thing, but I feel like that's just sort of an intrinsic thing with human nature, like with anything. Like as soon as there's a minute difference, then you hang shit on it. Like whether you at your core believe that it's wrong or right, or it's not hunting, or it's a lesser form or whatever, I don't think that's how we kind of think about it. And on a deep level, we sort of just go, oh, they're different. We hang shit on it. And it's probably most of the time lighthearted banter, like bow hunters and
You jump on Facebook.
like bow hunters versus rifle hunters.
When you have a platform that's as highly, potentially is as highly influential as you guys, saying, well, they're not hunters, they're shooters. And, what if someone's listening to that who you just called a shooter, but they consider themselves a hunter? Do you think that might be part of the disunity? Because, lots of people in this space always talk about, oh, there's no unity. Or what if those same people are doing something that may be ununified or causing division?
I see what you're saying, but I feel like you can't also take the fun out of it. The fun of...
Oh, it's super fun.
Yeah, but I mean, like the fun in the banter between the groups. Like
we go too far because we'll sit there and be like, well, hound hunters, say, like hound hunters that go pigging, or even run dogs on deer. You sort of sit there and, oh, that's unethical. But essentially they're just hunting. They're not using a firearm, so they're not a shooter as such. It's safe for this particular case.
But the hunting doesn't involve just firearms.
No, it doesn't. So there's division there. There is. And in the public's eye, an animal getting torn apart by a dog might be less fucking hell, less ethical than say shooting them. So you got division there.
It's interesting. I do 100% see the point in that it presents a much less united front when internally, like firearm owners are arguing,
It's bickering
and carrying on whatever. But I feel like any group of people who do any sort of pursuit, there's the same sort of thing that goes on, and it's just human nature. So, like, if you're a car enthusiast and you own a Holden, you're going to hang shit on Ford owners. Like, that's just natural. But at its
Japanese, like JDM market, versus like Euro market, kind of, they hang shit on each other and stuff.
Yeah, but to its core,
but we're not in that.
But if it's not, but to its core, you are a motorsport enthusiast, so you can bond with someone over that. Whether they're Ford, Holden, whatever, you still bond over the fact you're a motorsport enthusiast. So anyone who's a firearm owner or they consider themselves a hunter, then we support if they're doing it legally and ethically.
Of course.
Because we naturally bond over that. And I enjoy the banter between the idiosyncrasies of different groups. That's part of the fun of it. But you are 100% right, from a policy point of view, a legal standpoint, all that sort of things, it does take away from the united front. So how do you keep the fun but still provide that united hunt? That's the balance that I think needs to try and be achieved somehow.
Yeah. The other part that comes into that, I believe, is property access, especially in states where you don't have Crown land access. You've got hunters in South Australia. A lot of hunters grew up spotlighting foxes, rabbits, and they'll call themselves shooters or roost shooters or whatever. And then they don't really want their access on their private land taken away, so they belittle someone that does something different, or vice versa. Maybe not so much in Victoria because you've got Crown land in New South Wales. I don't know. But I think there's multiple issues as to why we're not a united front, and you are correct. We're definitely not united.
Well, I was just meaning about, you can't control what other people say or don't say, what they do and don't do. But from a media point of view, like from, someone who is part of this community and stuff, and you've got a platform, how do you feel about just that? Just, are you guys, the idea that either you guys, other podcasters and stuff who hammer on about they're a shooter, not a hunter, like saying something like that when like referencing someone or whatever, what greater effects does that have on the community? There's another podcast who hammer on about only hunt on public land, like in Australia, like they only hunt on public lands and stuff. And it's like, what do you expect everyone who identifies as a hunter to move to Victoria and New South Wales? Like your message is like division. Like and it's like, why do that? And I think it's like a bit of an ego thing, because it feels nice to be a better hunter than someone else. And I just listen to it all the time, and I'm like, man, I think this might be something that's contributing to division.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we as a podcast have any agenda that we push in terms of, like, obviously we each have our own personal preferences and what we think. Yeah. But as a podcast, I don't think we push any sort of agenda. We like hearing what people do. We want to get a hound hunter on because we've never done it. So we want to hear what they go through. We want to hear about the method. We want to learn, understand. So, any sort of stigma or judgment about what they do is we can hear that and listen and have an educated opinion on it, rather than just go, oh, fucking hound hunting's terrible. Like, they take 10 shots at a moving target. Like, that's what people assume. Yeah. But we've never done it. So we can't actually make a judgment unless you've either tried it or heard firsthand about what's going on. So I think it's we try and be very careful about pushing any particular agenda or labeling people, because you are right. Like, someone who goes out and spotlights rabbits and calls themselves a hunter, like, I think it's important, because I feel like there's a progression that you you go on as a hunter or a shooter, and you feel like you are a certain thing at various stages throughout it. So there's no point saying to a 16-year-old who goes out and spotlights rabbits on his farm that he's not a hunter. But
Right.
in his terminology, how he thinks of himself, he's a hunter.
Right.
So I'm not going to go, well, no, you're just a shooter. I would never say that to him, because to him, that might feel like hunting, or his definition of hunting.
So I'm saying, like, if you're recording a podcast, you feel you have a responsibility to, use specific language to make sure that all people feel that way, that they do feel included. And
we're pretty
feel
not,
that certain language.
we're not well articulated, man. So probably not.
Look, we'd never try.
I mean, because the long-term plan is that everyone, who's on the Firearm Owners United page, 61,000 people will listen to Send It Mate. So very shortly, obviously, 61,000 people are going to listen to you every single week. Easy. First step. That's the first step. Easy done. And so the idea is that it's going to be a person audience. And do you feel any sort of responsibility to, in the language that you use?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we could probably tighten up our language, but I think our sort of ethos as a podcast is definitely inclusive to everybody, regardless whether you spotlight, run dogs, use a rifle, use a bow. None of us are bow hunters here in this table, but yet we love it
and support it.
And support it. And we've tried to support it in the way that we can when they tried to ban the bow here. And for us, that was to help generate positive media attention and awareness to bow hunting. And we'd do the same for pig hunters that run dogs and stick them. We'd do the same for Joe Blow that shoots rabbits, duck hunts, whatever. We find that extremely important because, as you were saying before, we want that to help promote that united front, because as a single unit, we're certainly going to have a better voice with politics and legislation and this and that.
So is a rabbit shooter a hunter?
Yeah, in my mind.
Is a root shooter a hunter?
Yeah. Yeah, I went out and I started on rabbits as a kid. And to this day, I still love and still find it very, very hard at times to go hunt rabbits on foot with a spotlight, whatever. I still find it challenging. I still find exactly the same thrill as I do with deer hunting or whatever. And I also still find that they taste just as yummy when you cook them up. Or,
That's good. I like that.
It's all hunting.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
And I think we're all in the same mindset. Otherwise, people will be getting fired on this.
I mean, I guess we personally try not to get bogged down too much in correct terminology, but by the same token, it is important to use correct terminology to educate people properly.
It is.
So it's an interesting point.
That's going to be hard.
I just bring it up because, like I said, I've got something for all of you, and that's something that comes up. And look, I say it all the time when Zach says it. It's a thing where people say it's like, well, they're not hunting, they're shooting, and it's like, well man, should we keep saying that sort of stuff? Because saying that and then being like, why isn't everyone united? It's like, hang on.
Well, I guess it's sort of.
I think we might be causing that.
And I guess, like you said it as well just then, like you asked Josh if rabbit shooters are hunters, like if they're rabbit hunters, they're not rabbit shooters,
right?
So
I'm saying this comes up on.
No, it's just like I think it's just terminology, and it's not sort of any sort of meaning behind it.
A lot of the time, the terms are just interchangeable. Hunting and
Exactly.
shooting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, a lot of the time, it's just as simple as that. We don't mean anything behind it.
100%.
But yeah, unless you're firmly pushing an agenda and saying, no, you shoot rabbits, you're not a hunter. I don't, and we're certainly not about that. We're about promoting shooting as a sport in general. whether that's targets, whether that's, hunting animals,
Yeah.
whatever.
I just like putting people on the spot.
No, it is a good
It's a fair point.
because terminology is certainly critical. Correct terminology is critical in this era because otherwise you can be picked apart, especially by.
Oh, yeah. If you take a little
Lawmakers.
short soundbite of something we say, you could
Just anything like. Yeah.
Cody, don't do it. But yeah, you can make something sound however you want. But I guess whenever we do have a guest on and we talk about what they do and why they do it, it's good having a long format because then you can understand some more of the reasonings rather than just a short little 3-minute snippet where they go, I hunt. And then quite often people themselves, the guests themselves, use the terms interchangeably as well.
Yeah.
So it's about how much weight you want to put on the term itself as well, I guess. So
What do you think?
I think, and this is so like I bring this up for a reason because this is one of the things that Zach and I disagree on. Is I think that language causes division.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I understand being like what I do is hunting, what a roo shooter does is shooting. It's not hunting. I understand because it's like it feels nice to be other, right? And like you said, it's a very human thing. Like with the car communities, you see that people being like, well, you're not really into cars unless you're into muscle cars, unless you're not really into forward driving, unless you have some crappy 79 series Land Cruiser,
Could be a Tron.
fuck off.
So it is a very human thing, but in this community, one of the most common, something that's really common is people saying that we're not united. And then another is feeling really on the defense, right? And that leads into why it feels good to be other and it feels good to be better. But it doesn't matter, right? I don't care about my ego enough to be like, I'm a hunter, what you do is trash or whatever. Call me whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But a lot of people get called shooters. They consider themselves hunters. And it's like, why does it matter that you consider yourself a hunter and other people are only shooters just because you hunt deer on foot? This person spotlights roos with the correct permits or they spotlight rabbits and all that. When they consider themselves hunters, it's like, why? I believe that language of this person is a shooter, not a hunter, is divisive language.
Mm-hmm.
And to use that language, look, in jest between people doesn't really matter. But when you've got a platform and people can't see you joking because maybe they're just hearing you, people can take you out of context because they don't understand you joking. But the people might be like, why is a hunting community just calling what I do shooting? They're not saying I'm part of it. And then 5 minutes later, they're like, hey, this community is not united. It's like, well, then that's a contributing factor. Lots of contributing factors, of course, but I think that's one of them.
Yeah.
Should maybe the subgroups not be the focus? Should the focus be the group above that, which is we're firearm owners? Whether you are a shooter or a hunter, that's probably irrelevant. In terms of preserving the sport moving forward or whatever you use your firearm for legally, legal firearm owner, that's your category. And then your subclasses of hunter, shooter are kind of irrelevant. Like the main thing here is we want to preserve being able to be firearm owners in Australia.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like I said, you can't control what other people do, just yourselves. And that's why I want to ask this question, how you feel about that sort of language and that term. And if you have a responsibility to try and promote something better.
Yeah. You did say before that you had something for all of us. Was that?
Well, that was all of it.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were meaning you had one for Josh and then all of us, or one for each of us.
I mean, I can think of something if you want.
That's right. We'll just leave it with Josh. It's fine.
That's all right. I'll fucking take my $1 billion canal idea and fucking leave. Catch you later.
Leave where?
Buy yourself the boat.
Already got one, bruh?
Oh dear.
Does it work?
It does. It does.
It does now.
Have all
Well,
your mates gone on it? I mean,
I nearly, well,
I mean, I've
there was an incident that that I thought could have almost ended in a fail, and that was so we were out at actually the day that you both were supposed to come, Australia Day, and I ended up having to get the car from the beach, and the missus is in the water holding the boat, and the waves got a bit rough. So as I was reversing down, I stopped halfway. It was sort of like almost to where I needed to be, and I thought, all right, you jump in and I'll hold the boat. Because she looked like she was struggling a little bit with the waves crashing on the beach. Anyway, she jumped in and reversed it down, and reversed it down straight into the boat.
Straight into the what? Into the boat.
Into the boat, yeah. And it's caught on the corner and just made a bit of a mark down the hull. I'm like, oh,
It's been christened.
yeah, it has, it has. But it's all
that
good.
doesn't sound. Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
This is why you don't let her drive.
This is why you make sure your mates come out on the boat with you.
Yeah.
Well, I was waiting
Prior
at the start
organisation.
for you. So, yeah, actually, only one mate's been on the boat. I'll let you decide if he's worthy of being on the boat or not.
I mean, it's me.
I mean, look, I am definitely on your side on that part of the debate. You know, look, if you can tell me, we can organise. Hey, we're going to like the pub, well, not really the pub, but we're going somewhere on the second Tuesday of March, 2025. That's booked in that's solid. You do not have to bring it up again.
Oh, you're on their debate.
He's on our
That's
side.
our side.
Nah.
I'm on someone's side. You know, whatever. I just like causing division.
You shouldn't
myself.
need to communicate about it further.
Nah. Heard nothing.
Like, you don't have to bring it up again. If you've said it,
Thank you.
if you said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Why
Locked
didn't
in.
you bring it up?
You know what, Daniel? You're pretty cool.
You can.
I am.
I was about to say, actually,
right.
did we just become best friends when I thought you were going to go the other way? But no. There will be no karate.
He's
in
been
a
at
garage
you
for you
all
and me.
night, Josh.
He
Why
has.
do you think he's going to flip
He
now?
has.
He's a logical thinker. Josh.
He didn't say you're unique
Yeah, I mean,
for
I
no
have-
reason.
I
No.
already have a friend called Josh. Like, you can only have one.
Oh, there's too many Joshes about.
There are so many Joshes in the world.
No.
Honestly, and I mean, who needs them all, really?
I'll just take my canal and I'll just mark it out as our own country.
So you're not
around the
up.
borders.
You're not up for the conservation of Joshes.
I think,
Or just the
that
management.
They have definitely very much exceeded.
Yeah, you might need to
Yeah,
manage
the
it.
rate.
Yeah, okay.
They've gone feral. Maybe some culls, maybe some management really
Yeah.
needs to go in. We can probably do like a sterilization technique rather than just direct culling
I feel like it's a number you'd be able to give me. Where's a manageable number we'll be able to have
of Josh's.
Joshes? Yes.
Oh man, it's got to be triple digits at best, right?
That was well above
Triple
mine,
digits.
but
Like, I mean, if you spread them out all across Australia, that's, you know, maybe 112. I think is the number.
all right, 112 it is.
Jesus Christ.
Are you one of them though? Man,
That's all
figure
right.
that one out.
Yeah, that's all right.
There's already.
My mum loves me.
There's too many. There's too many. It feels like there's one every 3 square meters where we are, but fucking hell. Anyway, I think it's reached that time of night. We've equaled your time with Zach. So,
You don't want to be better than Zach?
look, what was the exact recording time? And then we'll just
Well,
make sure we exceed that.
Here's some division for you. Zach uses a blowpipe. Is he a hunter?
I mean, he's got a lot of experience on that blowpipe, hey? Like, how is he practicing? It's kind of questionable. He's so good at it.
I got so many jokes that are completely inappropriate right now.
They're inappropriate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which means they're being formed as we speak.
Yeah.
No.
And you'll hear them next week.
No, I was going to say, is he the man in the relationship? That's why he's getting so much practice.
That was made up on the fly to cover the made
No,
up
that's
jokes.
what I was thinking.
Okay.
We'll think about it.
You're thinking about Zach's manhood.
Yeah.
No.
What do you think about his manhood, man?
No, I'll explain it
Talking
after.
about blowpipes and his manhood. Settle down, bro.
Talking about how good, where the practice came from the blowpipe. Think about it.
That was my joke.
Yeah, that was
Well, I
Daniel's
mean-
joke. I got where he was going with that.
Yeah.
Just reiterating. You're just
Yeah.
recycling a joke.
Yeah.
Well done.
Jesus,
Look, you
man.
tried.
Fucking hell.
I appreciate the effort. To
Yeah,
comedy.
thank you.
We're descending into madness, but it's probably about time that we wrap this thing up. And for anyone listening and they've enjoyed Daniel, we're going to do an expert series episode with him where we'll go into everything that Firearm Owners United do, which is something we didn't touch on too much. We did kind of a little bit, but that's definitely an area of expertise. And we'll be asking some questions of our listeners so they can fire them through, and we can ask Daniel as well. So it's going to be an interesting episode, Daniel. Prepare yourself. So I'm going to tee that up in the near future. Daniel, how can people find you? How can they find Eureka Tactical? How can they buy some gear? Let us know all those good things.
Well, preferably go through Eureka Tactical. So Eureka Tactical, exactly how you think it would be spelled, on Instagram and Facebook. There's also eurekatactical.com is the overarching website where I've got the original stuff is more merchandise, messages on shirts. But I've also got some accounts with some thermal gear. Can get you like thermal, night vision, some like tents and all that sort of stuff. Finally sort of built up to that. And I do a lot of like messaging, some articles. I try and get at least one article a month that's pro-conservation or pro-hunting. So yeah, it's Eureka Tactical. If you want to talk to me for whatever reason, Daniel.Kuhl, KUHL01 on Instagram. I mostly just post photos of animals that I find when I'm out bush rather than hunting. All the hunting stuff's on Eureka Tactical.
Yeah, nice.
Sweet as, man. Well, we have to say a big thank you to you for being a guest on the podcast tonight. We've learned some stuff. We've had some fun conversations. Josh has been well and truly put back in his box, which is delightful, but it's been thought-provoking.
I think we've learned a lot.
Yeah, we
this
have.
podcast.
So you've raised some good points, mate, and I think that's the main thing is we all think about what we do, not just do it mindlessly and actually get educated on a few different things. So hopefully we've achieved that objective tonight, and everyone can look forward to hearing more from you in our upcoming expert series episode. So, yeah.
If anyone has made it this far, if you type in, I'll do a discount code of 12% for 1 week.
Ooh.
Discount code is Josh.
What date does that end?
Capital J and then lowercase OSH. I do it for 1 week, 12% off.
Hello. Well, there you go. You heard it here first.
Get on it,
If
lads.
you did get this far, then, yep, you've got yourself a little nugget of gold there.
I like it.
That's awesome.
Buy bulk shit, motherfuckers.
Yeah, there's pretty cool shirts that Daniel's got there. So
They're quite comfy as well. It's probably the hoodie from yours, Daniel, is probably my favourite hoodie. For sure.
You get a hoodie as well.
Yeah, hoodie. Hoodie, 2 T-shirts.
How much did you cost me? Jesus Christ.
and
I love it.
It was too hot to wear tonight because it is boiling
Yes,
in
it
this room. So he chose not to model it for a good reason.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we'll leave it there. Big thanks to Daniel, and yeah, see everyone next week.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, mate.
Guys.
Cheers. Catch ya.
Gotcha.
See you later.
It's the most formal you've ever been in your life.
You can't do 3 catches.
You can.
Yeah, I can. G'day, dude and dudettes. Josh here. Do you find it hard to keep your long, hard barrels free from gun STDs? Maybe you need a clean out of your bore. If this is you, jump on over to highcaliber.com.au and use the promo code SENDITMATE to receive a 10% discount on all your gun cleaning needs. And remember, it's sexy to support Australian-made products. Everyone here at Send It Mate uses High Caliber, And we can promise you that it'll keep your firearms free from those pesky gun STDs.